The sound of sword piercing through flesh echoed. Bailey Hongzhuang lifted her left foot, directly kicking the hell wolf's corpse at another hell wolf. Slam! Thump! Bang! The hell wolves advanced dauntlessly in waves after waves, continuing to throw themselves at her. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure was like the wind. Her expression was calm and steady. From beginning to end, she never exposed the slightest trace of panic. As the family head of a famous clan, there was no counting how many bad situations she'd been in. It was only natural that she didn't feel any fear. An enchanting scarlet flower bloomed on her white robes. The hell wolf's claw streaked across, leaving behind a bloody scar. But Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to feel no pain, the wound not affecting her movements at all. Every move was fast and accurate. The hell wolves fell down one after another. After seeing so many of their comrades being killed by Bailey Hongzhuang, the other hell wolves no longer dared to step forward. This was instinctual fear. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo couldn't say a word as they watched. Bailey Hongzhuang's performance had shocked them too much. They had also gone through this test, but their results couldn't even begin to be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's. From those firm and far-sighted eyes, they could finally see a ripe spirit. This girl is very calm. Lu Huayan's face was filled with emotions. It was impossible for them to do this at Bailey Hongzhuang's age. They had even made preparations in case something happened. But now it didn't seem like they need to do anything. Her mental strength is almost terrifying. Fu Hongbo's eyes shined brightly. He never thought that the one they didn't care for the most, Bailey Hongzhuang, would actually be the biggest harvest of this trip. No matter what, make sure to place her into the quota. Lu Huayan was sure that her future was limitless. This little Fengbo country would not be her stage. Fu Hongbo nodded in agreement, a bright, satisfied smile on his face. While the two people were talking, Bailey Hongzhuang looked suspiciously in their direction as she cut down more hell wolves. Her eyes, deep like ancient wells, flashed with cold light. Lu Huayan was startled, a trace of shock appearing in his eyes. This girl shouldn't be able to see us, right? With their cultivation, as long as they wanted to hide, nobody could find them. But Bailey Hongzhuang had clearly just looked at them. Impossible. It was probably just a coincidence. Fu Hongbo said slowly. Even so, his eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of doubt. He had also felt Bailey Hongzhuang's stare as if somebody really had seen them. But Bailey Hongzhuang was only an early-staged mysterious Ian cultivator. It was impossible for her spirit force to find them. The two stopped suspecting her. If Bailey Hongzhuang really was able to see, then that'd just be too frightening. While Bailey Hongzhuang was dealing with the hell wolves, many of the cultivators who heard the howls curiously came to watch. The prize for first place was just too tempting. The wolf howls became the focus of everyone's attention. The storm wolf might have appeared. But when everyone arrived and saw the pack of hell wolves, their faces all turned pale, at once preparing to run away. If a hell wolf found them, once they were surrounded, they'd truly be dying without even an intact corpse. But just as everyone started to leave, somebody suddenly shouted, "Somebody's inside the hell wolves." Hearing the shout, everybody's footsteps couldn't help but stop. They grew a little curious. Who was the unlucky egg that got surrounded by a pack of hell wolves? Quickly look. The one inside is Bailey Hongzhuang. Everybody became completely astonished, one after another jumping up trees to look at the situation in the pack of wolves. Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqian also came. Hearing that it was Bailey Hongzhuang, the two looked at each other with alarm. This time Bailey Hongzhuang's seriously screwed. Now she's destined to become the hell wolves' food. Everybody sighed with sorrow. Bailey Hongzhuang was too arrogant, and now she can only fall in the royal family's hunting competition. But when everybody climbed on the trees to see the hell wolves surround her, their eyes couldn't help but turn huge. They just couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Chapter 143. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were like thunder, each strike with unparalleled speed. The hell wolves fell one after another, powerless. Her jade-like face was stained with blood. The dark red blood contrasted against her pure white skin, giving her an indescribable allure. How is this possible? Bailey Hongzhuang's trash, right? How could she kill so many hell wolves? You're trash. At the very minimum, Bailey Hongzhuang should at least be mysterious in early stage. Everybody gulped. None of them ever thought Bailey Hongzhuang was actually so powerful. If they were surrounded by so many hell wolves, they'd be long dead. What was especially scary was how Bailey Hongzhuang's face was calm and indifferent the entire time. The people who had originally called Bailey Hongzhuang trash felt their cheeks turn hot. If Bailey Hongzhuang was trash, what were they? Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi looked at each other. Sure enough, what they thought was correct. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was truly incredible. I wonder how many people would be shocked by this. Xiao Zifan sighed with emotion. Yunqi, I want to help. Earlier, Bailey Hongzhuang had helped them in their time of need. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was in danger, he couldn't just watch without raising a finger. After being attacked by the flame civets last night, he had finally broken through to mysterious Earth late stage. Even though he knew his help wouldn't do much, he still wanted to go assist her. Only then can his conscience be clear. Hearing Xiao Zifan's words, Zhao Yunqi's eyes widened. Xiao Zifan, are you joking? Even if you broke through to late stage, going out to face that pack of hellwolves is the same as courting death. But Xiao Zifan's attitude remained firm. I already decided. Whatever the result is, I'll bear it myself. Finished speaking, Xiao Zifan no longer stayed, immediately heading towards Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. Zhao Yunqi quickly pulled Xiao Zifan's sleeve. Are you crazy? Xiao Zifan pursed his lips into a thin smile. When am I ever crazy? Moving his sleeve away, Xiao Zifan firmly walked towards the hellwolves. Zhao Yunqi stared blankly at his back. Watching Xiao Zifan's figure slowly fade away, she muttered, lunatic. As hellwolves were killed one after another, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly grew tired. She already tried her best to waste as little energy as possible, but each hellwolf had enormous strength. Every time she killed one, an enormous amount of energy had to be used. This isn't a good method. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. Her eyes flashed as she thought. Suddenly, a figure slowly made its way in front of her. Seeing its appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with astonishment. Xiao Zifan. His clear, handsome face revealed a gentle smile as he plunged into the battle with no hesitation. His voice was soft as he spoke. I came to help you. Waves appeared in her calm black pupils. She never expected that Xiao Zifan would suddenly come to her aid. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little touched. It wasn't her intention to help Xiao Zifan last night, but now he's here risking his life for her. Just by this fact alone, Xiao Zifan became her friend. Be careful. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice dropped slightly. Although she knew Xiao Zifan had broken through to late stage, it was still dangerous for him to face the hell wolves. Chapter 144. When the crowd saw Xiao Zifan actually go to help Bailey Hongzhuang, their faces grew even more surprised. Is this Xiao Zifan stupid? Actually taking the initiative to throw away his life. Who would have imagined this guy was always just pretending to be dignified during the day, feigning righteousness? He deserved to die. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Zifan stood back to back together. With Xiao Zifan's assistance, Bailey Hongzhuang had a lot less pressure. But Xiao Zifan and the Hellwolf's strengths were very similar. Only a short time had passed and he was already covered in wounds. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright phoenix eyes narrowed as she stared at the Hellwolf's king standing not so far away. Continuing this kind of fight was very disadvantageous for her and Xiao Zifan. Only by killing the Hellwolf's king she would have them retreat. When I count to 3, run through this encirclement of Hellwolves. Your safety is the highest priority. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her voice. Xiao Zifan was startled. Then what about you? I have a way to attract the Hellwolf's king's attention. Hearing her words, Xiao Zifan glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang deeply before immediately nodding his head. You must be careful. Don't worry, my life isn't so small. I won't die this easily. Her red lips hooked up into a small smile, blooming on Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face enchantingly under the moonlight. 1, 2, 3. The instant Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Xiao Zifan swiftly ran far away. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang ran in the opposite direction, moving to attack the Wolf's King. It was originally going to kill Xiao Zifan, but after seeing him run away and Bailey Hongzhuang charge at him, the Hell Wolf King changed its target to her. The pair of deep blue eyes grew faintly red. So many of its companions had died under Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. causing the Hell Wolves King to hate her to the extreme. Bailey Hongzhuang's shadow flickered, using her full strength to dodge the attacks. The crowd of Hell Wolves was very dense. Inside, she could only wave her sword once again, sweeping away the obstacles. But the Hell Wolf King seemed to know that he was Bailey Hongzhuang's target. He lifted his head and howled loudly. Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face was icy, the depths of her eyes cold, shining with ruthless murderous intent. Master, this Hell Wolf King has also reached Mysterious Ian early stage. Your strengths are the same. Little White reminded her. Bailey Honghang slowly nodded her head, but her eyes didn't change, immediately brandishing her sword at the Hell Wolves King. At the same time, the Hell Wolf King pounced on Bailey Hongzhuang. Its actions were cold and ruthless, its fangs wanting to directly tear Bailey Hongzhuang in half. Ding! Bailey Hongzhuang's sword clashed against the Hell Wolf King's fangs. A crisp sound rang out. The Hell Wolf King was completely unharmed, but the sword in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands had a large hole. Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to recover, the Hell Wolf once again attacked. Watching the scene, many of the young cultivators wanted to turn their eyes away. They couldn't bear to see such a cruel scene. Without a weapon, Bailey Hongzhuang was not the Hell Wolf King's opponent. You could only blame Bailey Hongzhuang for being too arrogant to even be crazy enough to attack the Hell Wolves King. Xiao Zifen had quickly left the Hell Wolves' encirclement. When he found that no Hell Wolves were chasing him, he couldn't help but sigh with relief, but his heart still worried for Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 145. Zhao Yunqi walked up to Xiao Zifen, her beautiful face filled with blame. Did you need to do that? Look at yourself, you're covered in cuts and bruises. She thought that Xiao Zifen was truly stupid. Yesterday Bailey Hongzhuang didn't really want to help them, but he still insisted on paying Bailey Hongzhuang back for her kindness. Xiao Zifen ignored Zhao Yunqi's words, immediately turning to look in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. Inwardly, he prayed for her to also be safe. The Hell Wolf King threw itself at Bailey Hongzhuang. Everybody watched as the figures of a human and beast intertwined together, the heavy smell of blood permeating through the air. Bailey Hongzhuang died. Let's go. One man slowly spoke. This battle today had truly opened their eyes and expanded their horizons. Hearing so, everybody jumped one after another down the trees. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's strength had exceeded their expectations, the result was just as they thought. Xiao Zifen's face instantly turned pale. He really didn't want to see Bailey Honghang die like this. Don't look. You also knew it was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to defeat the Hell Wolf's King. Zhao Yunqi rolled her eyes. She really didn't understand why Xiao Zifen was so fixated on this. The Hell Wolf's King's strength didn't even lose by much to the Storm Wolves. No matter who it was, they could only die. From the moment Bailey Hongzhuang was surrounded, she was already destined to fall. But when Zhao Yunqi glanced at the Hell Wolf's King, she suddenly saw a bloody figure getting up from the Wolf King's corpse. Zhao Yunqi pointed her finger, but her throat seemed to be stuck. The words just couldn't come out. Seeing Zhao Yunqi's appearance that looked as if she had seen a ghost, Xiao Zifen pursed his eyebrows thoughtfully. His eyes following the direction of Zhao Yunqi's finger. His ashen face quickly turned pleasantly surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang, you didn't die? His bright, excited voice rang out in the quiet mountains. The leaving cultivators' footsteps slowed as they turned around. What did they just hear? Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't dead? After the group of Hell Wolves saw their king die, there was no longer any thoughts of fighting left in their hearts, quickly running away into the thick forest. Everyone was stunned as they looked at the figure dyed in red, chaotic waves appearing in their hearts. What? Bailey Honghang defeated the Hell Wolf's King? I must be dreaming. The result was completely different from what everybody imagined. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was Mysterious Ian early-stage cultivation, it still should have been impossible for her to kill the Hell Wolf's King. Could her cultivation actually be at the intermediate stage? Hearing the guess, almost all the cultivators wanted to instinctively refuse. But when they recalled Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, the words couldn't help but be stuck in their throats. The thin, bloody figure was especially eye-catching in the dark night. After such a big battle, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was graceful and indifferent as usual. Only her aura was a bit denser. Her back was straight, walking step by step. It seemed almost as if she had stepped on the apex, leaving only a bright red figure imprinted in everyone's minds. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze slowly swept through the crowd before looking at her surroundings. In that instant, all the cultivators' eyes changed. Those sharp, icy eyes and cold gaze. None of them had the courage to face it. This was her aura. In that moment, everybody truly understood a single fact. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't trash, but actually an unsurpassed talent. Bailey Hongzhuang finally arrived in front of Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi. Before Xiao Zifan could speak, Bailey Hongzhuang had already forced a small pill into his mouth. "What did you make him eat?" Zhao Yunqi asked, startled. "Zhao Yunqi, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't do anything to hurt me." Xiao Zifan's face didn't have even a trace of nervousness. If Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to kill him, he would have already died 1,000 times. The pill she fed him should be to heal him. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Zhao Yunqi indifferently before turning back to Xiao Zifan. "You're a lot smarter than her." Hearing her words, although Zhao Yunqi couldn't help but feel a little resentful, she wasn't able to find a good retort. Bailey Hongzhuang handed Xiao Zifan a white porcelain bottle. "These are Jinchuang pills. Its quality is very good." "Thanks." Xiao Yifan accepted the Jinchuang pills, smiling. "No need." Her clear, beautiful face beyond compare rippled with a faint smile. "You came to help me even under such dangerous circumstances. You are my friend." She didn't care about why he did that, or if Xiao Zifan was only trying to pay her back from yesterday. He had disregarded his own safety just to lessen her pressure. Not many people could do that. "I'm very honored." Xiao Zifan's smile was like the sun. He truly wanted to become Bailey Hongzhuang's friend. After this short time in contact with her, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang definitely wasn't as unapproachable as they saw on the surface, and actually, her thinking was very simple. "I'll leave first. If you ever need help with something, feel free to look for me." Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Zhao Yunqi's face full of displeasure and her lips curled into a thin arc. She didn't want to deal with a third unwanted guest. Xiao Zifan also understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. Without any objection, he said, "There are many demonic beasts in the hunting field. Please be careful." "Don't worry." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled openly before turning away to leave. When everybody saw Bailey Hongzhuang leave, the originally taut atmosphere relaxed, everybody sighing with relief. Bailey Yuan's really out of luck. Before she kept on calling Bailey Hongzhuang trash. I think now she was truly foolish. I heard Bailey Yuan also broke through. Now her strength is incomparable to before. Even if she broke through, do you really think she's Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent? The crowd fell silent. Everybody saw Bailey Hongzhuang facing against that group of hell wolves. They've all seen her strength with their own eyes. From the bottom of their hearts, they were certain Bailey Yuan was not Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent. After leaving the battle place, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to walk forward. Earlier when she was fighting the Hell Wolves King, its blood had sprayed all over her body. Smelling the stench on her body, Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. "Are there any rivers nearby?" "There's a river not so far away in the easy." Little Black piped up. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly nodded her head, turning to walk east. Reaching the river, she washed off all the blood reeking on her body before changing into fresh, clean robes. Finally, she stopped and sat down on a tree to rest. "Master, the way the Hell Wolves just suddenly appeared earlier was very suspicious. I think somebody must have deliberately lured them here." Little White's voice was heavy. Bailey Hongzhuang understood the demonic beast's temperament. If someone didn't provoke the Hell Wolves, they wouldn't have attacked. Chapter 147. Her eyes that were black like ink flickered with coldness. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was icy and calm. Somebody was definitely behind this. It was nearly impossible that she made a low-level mistake like provoking a group of hell wolves, so a third party was the only possible explanation. Little Black frowned. "But nobody competing in the hunting competition has the ability to do such a thing. The strongest competing cultivator's cultivation was only at mysterious Ian intermediate stage. Wanting to use the Hell Wolves King for themselves was nearly impossible for them." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a dark smile. "There's no way a competing cultivator did this. It must be someone else." "You mean?" Little Black's fluff raised. Its heart also harbored the same suspicions. "Right?" One man and two beasts fell into silence. their hearts already certain. The next day, the sky bright, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. After a night's rest, her condition was restored by more than half. It's finally the last day. Today we'll look for the storm wolf. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes, speaking slowly. Little Black and Little White smiled confidently. Now that Master came out, first place would definitely belong to Master. After searching for 2 days without even finding a trace of the storm wolf, Bailey Hongzhuang had roughly narrowed down its location. Now she didn't hesitate to set out. Only a white figure could be seen, flying from tree to tree. She was calm and graceful, as if she was traveling on flat ground. The thistles and thorns didn't seem to affect her at all. The hunting field's air became tense. Today was the last day. All of their results will be announced. In other words, today was everybody's last chance. But while the cultivators were desperately searching for the storm wolf in the hunting grounds, the mood outside was filled with shock. Xianyuan Yutian and the chancellors listened to the Imperial Guard reporting the news in the hunting grounds, astonishment on all their faces. Last night, Chen Wangfei was surrounded by a flock of hell wolves? Xianyuan Yutian asked. The Imperial Guard immediately nodded his head, right? Chen Wangfei was encircled within a group of hell wolves alone. Xianyuan Yutian's heart dropped. For the past 2 days, he had been searching for information on Dibei-chan. Although he didn't get an exact answer yet, he was certain Dibei-chan would go back to fight for himself. For these 3 years, although he didn't treat Dibei-chan badly, he also had been very apprehensive about his so-called talent. In fact, he actually never thought Dibei-chan would ever return to office after living as a hermit on Mount Dongshan figure, to make a comeback. But now what he had thought was impossible had now happened. He knew about Dibei-chan's former identity. Once Dibei-chan took everything back, his status would undergo an earth-shaking change. Bailey Hongzhuang was Dibei-chan's Chen Wangfei. If she got into an accident, one can easily imagine Dibei-chan's reaction. When Bailey Zhentao, Su Wanjing, and Bailey Haoxuan heard the news, their eyes couldn't help but shine with happiness. Because of Bailey Hongzhuang's existence, it could even be said that their general's household had lost the most face it had ever lost before. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was dead, they could only rejoice over her misfortune. That trash that only brought shame to their family never should have been born in this world. As the Imperial Guard looked at everybody's faces change, his own expression also turned a little strange. He still wasn't done speaking. Reporting back to the Emperor, my report still hasn't finished. Xianyuan Yutian frowned. What more? He didn't care about anything else that happened in the hunting fields, his mind full of ways to tell Dibei-chan about Bailey Hongzhuang's death. Chen Wangfei killed the Hellwolves King alone by her own power, scaring the rest of the Hellwolves away. Chapter 148. When everybody heard these words, time seemed to almost freeze. Everybody's eyes widened as they stared at the Imperial Guard, thinking that they must have misheard what he said. What did you say? Su Wanjing couldn't help but ask. What a joke. It was a group of Hellwolves. How could Bailey Hongzhuang even get out alive? Never mind kill the Hellwolves King. After Su Wanjing asked, everybody's gaze once again landed on the Imperial Guard's body. This news was even more unbelievable than the sky falling down, or the rain turning red. Chen Wangfei killed the Hellwolves King alone by her own power, scaring the rest of the Hellwolves away. The Imperial bodyguard repeated it again and again until everyone was sure that they didn't hear wrongly. But still they just couldn't believe it. Did you see this with your own eyes? Li Changqian questioned. He didn't believe Bailey Hongzhuang had that much power. The guard slowly nodded his head, his face serious as he answered yes. Everybody looked at each other. Even though the guard confirmed it, they still found it too hard to believe. A woman known as Trash actually killed a Hellwolf King? A Hellwolf King's strength was the mysterious Ian intermediate stage. Until the Imperial bodyguard left, everyone was silent. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe it. Xianyuan Yutian and Jiang Jining glanced at each other. They were just as shocked as everyone else, unable to believe that was the truth. From Bailey Hongzhuang's recent actions, they already knew Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't simple. But now it seems that the general's household who took a heaven-gifted genius as trash, truly had no eyes. Originally they had thought Bailey Hongzhuang was unsuited to be the crown princess, no whether in etiquette or in strength, but now it appeared that they had truly miscalculated. In the whole country, never before was there such an outstanding woman as Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Zhentao fell in deep silence. Although other people didn't believe it, he did. He knew she wasn't weak since that time she stopped his fist, but he never expected her to be strong enough to slay a Hell Wolf King. Now Bailey Yuyan might not even be her match. A hard-to-describe irritation and bewilderment enveloped Bailey Zhentao's heart. He couldn't understand Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Why did she pretend to be trash for all those years? Suddenly, Bailey Zhentao's gaze fell upon Su Wanjing's body. Over these past few years, he had never even so much given a glance at Bailey Hongzhuang. Everything he knew about her was from Su Wanjing's mouth. He knew Su Wanjing definitely wouldn't treat Bailey Hongzhuang well. Being bullied every day was unavoidable. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang only feigned ignorance to survive? When that thought surfaced in his mind, Bailey Zhentao was even more convinced there hadn't been a flaw in his reasoning. If it wasn't like that, what gifted genius would like to be ridiculed? That stupid woman. A burning rage rose up in Bailey Zhentao's mind. If not for her foolishness, how could the current general's household have fallen like this? Sensing Bailey Zhentao's furious gaze, Su Wanjing couldn't help it but stare blankly, her mind filled with fear. And because of the current situation, she couldn't even bring herself to ask. Bailey Hongzhuang's face had already turned extremely gloomy. How could that trash he always bullied turn out to be an even greater talent than him? Recalling Bailey Hongzhuang's haughty, disdainful face, he wanted to tear her body to shreds. Chapter 149. After 2 hours of searching, Bailey Hongzhuang finally locked down the Storm Wolf's location. According to usual Storm Wolf behaviors, besides here, there was nowhere else it would live. But when Bailey Hongzhuang neared the den, sounds of a fight suddenly appeared in front of them, causing her to frown. It seemed that somebody had found the Storm Wolf before she did. Since someone took the initiative to attack, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't need to hurry. She slowly walked ahead, happy to watch a good play. A man and a Storm Wolf coiled around each other. The man was somebody Bailey Hongzhuang was rather familiar with, Xinyuan Huan. Amongst the cultivators competing this year, apart from her, only Bailey Yuyan and Xinyuan Huan had reached the initial stage of Mysterious Ian. A person courageous enough to challenge the Storm Wolf could only be one of those two. A Storm Wolf's speed was like its name, just like a storm, exceptionally fierce. Even though it was Xinyuan Huan as they fought, he slowly began to be suppressed. Xinyuan Huan continuously tangled with the wolf, his chi exploding as he brandished his sword. Traces of swords appeared and disappeared, moving with incomparable sharpness. His handsome face was serious, his eyes deep and earnest as he continuously tried to defeat the Storm Wolf. Looking at such a Xinyuan Huan, Bailey Hongzhuang's face couldn't help but change a little. Although nothing good could be said about his behavior, his strength wasn't bad. Before she had only seen the unscrupulous side of him, and actually never seen him so serious before. But even so, the disgust in her heart for Xinyuan Huan couldn't be changed. Although Xinyuan Huan's strength isn't bad, he still isn't the Storm Wolf's opponent. Little White focused on the fight in front of them, quickly determining which side was superior. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips hooked, her beautiful face bewitching and seductive. From beginning to end, Xinyuan Huan always lived in lukewarm waters. He can't use all of his strength. This was actually a deficiency most highborn cultivators faced. They possessed enough cultivation resources, and with pretty good talent, they could easily be very strong with some effort. However, they had never experienced a life-and-death fight. Cultivating high was one thing, but actual fighting strength was something else. Only after having experienced a fight between life and death would all their potential be stimulated. Only after narrowly avoiding a visit to the Yellow Springs would they understand their weak points and learn how to fix them. Yellow Springs. Chinese underworld in mythology. Although it wouldn't appear early on in cultivation, as cultivators slowly grow and their insights of the world change, the gap would become very clear. In her previous life, though she grew up as the Lin family head, she was never allowed to be the least bit lazy. The reason why the Lin family had such a high status in the Shangxian continent was that their core was strong enough. All of the Lin family's younger generation were treated equally, leaving them when young in the mountain ranges to learn through experience. Each time there were no small number of casualties, but the cultivators who emerged successfully from the mountains had all undergone earth-shattering changes. And that was just the beginning. From the day she was born, her life was never destined to be easy. But even so, she never felt that the suffering was too much to bear. Because along with the suffering, she reaped a far bigger harvest. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Little Black and Little White nodded. Bailey Hongzhuang's sentence had stated it perfectly. Xinyuan Huan slowly lost his strength. Although he could still fight calmly, it was impossible for him to beat it now. Chapter 150 Clang. A sharp sound rang out in the air. Xinyuan Huan carelessly fell down in front of the storm wolf, his sword flying from his hands. Xinyuan Huan's face was full of panic. How could the storm wolf be so strong? Now that his weapon was gone, how could he face the storm wolf? Ah! Xinyuan Huan released a blood-curdling shriek. The storm wolf had bitten his arm. A crisp caw sound echoed. Xinyuan Huan's bones were snapped. Bailey Hongzhuang's face stayed indifferent. She and Xinyuan Huan never had a good relationship, so of course she wouldn't go out to save him. But Xinyuan Huan's luck was clearly good. Bailey Yuan had suddenly appeared. Crown Prince. Seeing Xinyuan Huan's arm bitten by the storm wolf, Bailey Yuan couldn't help but cry out in alarm. When Xinyuan Huan saw Bailey Yuan appear, his pale face lit up with happiness. Bailey Yuan, quickly save me. Bailey Yuan repeatedly nodded her head. Don't worry, I will definitely come to save you. Although the situation was very dangerous, Bailey Yuan's mood was actually very good. She never thought that today she would get a chance to save the Crown Prince. If she saved him, Bailey Yuan was sure he would no longer be as disgusted with her. Bailey Yuan quickly pulled out her sword before attacking the storm wolf without the slightest bit of hesitation. When the storm wolf saw Bailey Yuan attack, it no longer bothered with Xinyuan Huan, turning to throw itself at her. Bailey Yuan's heart was very tense. If even Xinyuan Huan couldn't beat the storm wolf, she was even less of an opponent for it. Seeing the storm wolf's attention turn to Bailey Yuan, Xinyuan Huan sighed with relief. Although his arm was crippled, he still had his life. It looks like it'll be an interesting show. Bailey Hongzhuang sat on the treetop, her face indifferent as she watched the storm wolf fight hand-to-hand with Bailey Yuan. Little black eyes flickered with excitement. Now that the storm wolf is attacking Bailey Yuan, Master can save some effort. A woman like Bailey Yuan shouldn't deserve to live in the world. If it wasn't for Xinyuan Huan interfering earlier, Master would have already killed Bailey Yuan. If the storm wolf killed Bailey Yuan, they wouldn't need to personally dirty their hands. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile, her eyes bright as if she was enjoying a good play. Since Bailey Yuan likes to play beauty saving the hero so much, naturally we'll let her show off. As Bailey Hongzhuang was speaking, Bailey Yuan was forced to shrink back step by step. Although her strength was pretty good in the beginning, her chi was quickly used up as she faced the storm wolf. She had already lost control of her body. Screams constantly rang out in the air. In just that brief span of time, Bailey Yuan's body was already riddled with scars and wounds, drenched in blood. Xinyuan Huan immediately took out a pill and swallowed it. He never thought that the wolf would actually be so strong, and although he wanted to help Bailey Yuan, his wounds were too heavy. He was already incapable of fighting. Crown Prince. Bailey Yuan couldn't help but call out. There was no chance for her to deal with the storm wolf alone. Suddenly, while Bailey Yuan was trying to escape from the storm wolf, she accidentally saw Bailey Hongzhuang sitting up on a tree not so far away. Her pitch-black pupils were filled with anger. While they were being beaten black and blue by the storm wolf, Bailey Hongzhuang was actually watching them calmly like a joke. They weren't that convenient. Chapter 151 Bailey Yuan's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. Before, Bailey Hongzhuang only managed to escape by a fluke. Since Bailey Hongzhuang went and sought death, her troubles could very well be shifted onto her. Bailey Yuan wasn't nice enough to act out a show for her to watch. For this reason, she wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to pay with her life. Master, Bailey Yuan found you. Little Black voiced. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled indifferently. Oh well, we can just use this as an opportunity to dispose of her. The reason why she dared to watch the show so arrogantly on the treetops was because she simply didn't care if Bailey Yuyan or Xin Yuanhuan discovered her or not. Bailey Yuyan was completely silent. As she fought with the storm wolf, she slowly moved to the tree Bailey Hongzhuang was sitting on. Very quickly, Bailey Yuyan reached the spot under Bailey Hongzhuang's tree. But by then, her hibiscus embroidered robe was already dyed with blood. However, there was also a glint of excitement flickering in Bailey Yuyan's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang, aren't you quite crazy? If you have the ability, then come down from the tree. Xin Yuanhuan had just noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang was atop the tree, but he didn't know from when she had been up there. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered, I am quite crazy, but still, why should I come down? Bailey Yuyan's eyes were filled with ridicule. All you know is to talk big when in fact, you're just trash with nothing good about you. When she heard the word trash, a trace of ruthlessness appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Bailey Yuyan, this level of provocation is just too basic. Her beautiful, cold voice was filled with contempt, as if she disdained Bailey Yuyan from the bottom of her heart. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang actually see through her thoughts, Bailey Yuyan's face turned somewhat ugly. But after a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang actually directly jumped down from the tree, her eyes looking straight at Bailey Yuyan. Haha, trash. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed madly, an arrogant expression appearing on her beautiful face. You keep on saying I'm trash, but you can't even defeat a storm wolf alone. You're the trash. Bailey Yuyan was startled. Meeting Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, a chill couldn't help but arise from the depths of her heart. Her pupils, black as ink, seemed to be able to pierce through her heart. That noble air that seemed to stem from her bones couldn't help but make Bailey Yuyan feel inferior. In that moment, Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have the aura of an emperor, a tyrannical aura erupting around her. A mere glance in her mind could no longer build up the slightest shred of resistance. Why was this happening? Bailey Yuyan screamed in her mind. Why was she so scared after a single glance from Bailey Hongzhuang? Under such an aura, she felt an indescribable pressure. You said I was trash? Bailey Yuyan forced herself to argue back. Then if you have the ability, why don't you kill the wolf? A charming smile formed in Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. I will show you what true strength is. Bailey Yuyan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, shocked. This trash actually dared to fight the storm wolf? Xin Yuanhuan was also astonished. Since Bailey Hongzhuang saw Bailey Yuyan fight the storm wolf, she definitely should have known how strong it was. How could she still dare to fight it? While the two were stunned, Bailey Hongzhuang had already walked up to face the storm wolf. The storm wolf's and the hell wolf king's strengths were roughly the same, but the storm wolf was faster whereas the hell wolf was stronger. Bailey Hongzhuang took out a sharp sword from her heaven-earth pouch. Fortunately, she had bought it before the hunting competition started in case of an emergency. Now it was finally time to use it. Chapter 152. The qi in Bailey Hongzhuang's body stirred. Mysterious Ian initial stage power erupting into the air. Mysterious Ian initial stage. Bailey Yuyan was terrified as she watched, stormy waves appearing in her heart, an indescribable shock engulfing her. How could Bailey Hongzhuang reach Mysterious Ian initial stage? Before, she and Bailey Hongzhuang lived together. She was very familiar with Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. How could trash reach Mysterious Ian initial stage and become such a gifted genius in such a short time? You must know, although her cultivation was also at the initial stage of Mysterious Ian, she was 1 year older than Bailey Hongzhuang. Although a 1 year gap looked like nothing to ordinary people, she knew the disparity in talent. With a 1 year difference in the future, the gap could grow even bigger. She just couldn't imagine the trash that she always humiliated under the sole of her feet would actually turn out to be even more gifted than her. Xin Yuanhuan had a self-deprecating smile on his face. Before he had used every possible way to mock Bailey Hongzhuang when in fact, in her eyes he was the real fool. Mysterious Ian initial stage cultivation at 15 years old was fully deserving of being called a genius. Ding ding ding. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm as she faced the vicious storm wolf without the slightest trace of fear. Her long double-edged suddenly stabbed forward. Each strike left behind a cut on the storm wolf's body. Bailey Yuyan watched, her heart filled with endless jealousy. Her body was covered in wounds without even one hit landing on the storm wolf. But Bailey Hongzhuang only used one strike to cut the wolf. Was there really such a big difference between the two of them? Oh woo! The storm wolf couldn't help but howl loudly as Bailey Hongzhuang striked again and again. It could sense that this person was far stronger than the other two. The storm wolf's figure was like lightning, quickly disappearing before Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. That was the most troublesome part about a storm wolf. Its speed was too fast for the eye to see. By the time the cultivator finally adjusted, the storm wolf would have already striked. Bailey Yuyan sneered in her heart. Bailey Hongzhuang was just talking big. She wanted to see what Bailey Hongzhuang would do now. But only a moment passed before Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan were astonished to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's figure had already disappeared from sight. Bailey Hongzhuang shadow shifted. Shadow shifting was the Lin family's most outstanding movement skill. Its effects naturally needn't be said. Ding! A sound rang out in the air. Hearing it, Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan knew that was where Bailey Hongzhuang and the storm wolf were fighting. Bailey Hongzhuang and the storm wolf's speeds were actually comparable to each other. Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan could finally see Bailey Hongzhuang's true speed. The storm wolf's speed didn't win against Bailey Hongzhuang's at all. In fact, the storm wolf was even faintly suppressed by her. Bailey Yuyan's face slowly changed as she watched. Bailey Hongzhuang's growth was just too fast. She couldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang continue anymore, or else it'd be impossible for her to kill Bailey Hongzhuang later. If she took advantage of the time while Bailey Hongzhuang was dealing with the storm wolf to mount a sneak attack, Bailey Hongzhuang definitely wouldn't be her opponent. Bailey Haoxuan's hatred and Su Wanjing's expectations floated into her mind. Bailey Yuyan's face turned merciless. She no longer hesitated, picking up her weapon to attack Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 153 What a despicable woman! Little Black cursed. This was the first time he had ever seen someone be so shameless. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was cold, her eyes turning icy. That's just Bailey Yuyan's style. Since she wants to die, there's no reason for us to stop her. Her pitch-black pupils glowed with cold killing intent. Today is the day she personally kills Bailey Yuyan. Ding ding ding. The two weapons clashed. A sinister smile sat on Bailey Yuyan's face. Bailey Hongzhuang, so what if you're a genius? I definitely won't let you leave the hunting grounds alive. Such trash, you don't have the skill. Bailey Hongzhuang ridiculed. Hearing the contempt in Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, Bailey Yuyan's face turned ugly, impudent. Let's see how much longer you can act so arrogant. When Xianyuan Huan saw Bailey Yuyan actually mount a sneak attack on Bailey Hongzhuang, his face was shocked. Bailey Yuyan's actions were simply too outrageous. He had thought that Bailey Yuyan wanted to kill the storm wolf, not kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Yuyan's heart was truly too poisonous. He wanted to step up and protect Bailey Hongzhuang, but the arm that was bitten couldn't even hold a weapon. Fighting with one hand behind his back, only half of his fighting strength could come out. If he stepped forward, he was afraid that the storm wolf would directly bite off his neck in one move. Under the storm wolf and Bailey Yuyan's attacks, Bailey Hongzhuang's advantage slowly started to slip away. After all, they were all at the initial stage of Mysterious Ian. Little Black didn't know when he had jumped onto Bailey Yuyan's body. He only knew that this woman was simply too shameless. He just had to teach her a lesson. Bailey Yuyan attacked Bailey Hongzhuang's vital organs relentlessly. Suddenly she frowned. A burst of pain appeared on the back of her head, but when she looked, there was nothing behind her. This was only Little Black's first attack. Very soon intolerable pain stabbed at Bailey Yuyan's back, forcing her to retreat from the fight. She struggled to look at her back, but she still wasn't able to see clearly. But the thick bloodstains left on the ground told her that her back was already wounded. Her scarred face turned confused. Bailey Yuyan looked around suspiciously. Was there another person secretly attacking from somewhere in the forest? But after looking around and finding nothing, Bailey Yuyan prepared to jump back into the fight. But just as Bailey Yuyan moved, another stab of pain pierced her back. Who's attacking me? Bailey Yuyan shouted angrily. This feeling when she couldn't find who was doing it was just too unbearable. Nobody answered her. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bailey Yuyan indifferently. She knew that it was Little Black and Little White. Borrowing this opportunity, she could quickly deal with the storm wolf before finally finishing off Bailey Yuyan. Bailey Hongzhuang unleashed all her strength, raising her long double-edged sword. She prepared to fight directly with the storm wolf. Seeing this, Xin Yuanhuan could only think Bailey Hongzhuang was mad. A demonic beast's body was very strong. The human body simply couldn't even begin to compare to it. He had never seen a cultivator actually dare to recklessly face a demonic beast up front, but now it was happening in front of his very eyes. Breaking storm. Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly. The qi stored within her body rotated strangely, forming a tyrannical force above her fists. Bailey Hongzhuang shadow shifted, her fist like lightning as she punched the storm wolf's waist with a boom. She used her strongest and most powerful attack to strike at the storm wolf's weakness. She wanted to kill the storm wolf as soon as possible. This was the best way. Bang! A loud bang echoed. Xin Yuanhuan and Bailey Yuyan could only see a body fly in the air, landing heavily on the ground, making a cloud of dust. When the two saw the body on the ground, they sucked in a cold breath. It was the storm wolf. They were very clear about just how powerful the storm wolf was. But Bailey Hongzhuang just used a fist to send the storm wolf flying. Bailey Hongzhuang took advantage of the confusion to attack. Her sword reappeared in her hands, stabbing into the storm wolf's struggling body. Qi. Blood squirted into the air. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent as she briskly waved her sword, taking its demonic core. First place was hers. After she strayed the demonic core away, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to face Bailey Yuyan. Little Black also quickly jumped back on Bailey Hongzhuang's head. Now it's your turn. Her words were cold and apathetic, voice cloaked with killing intent. Bailey Hongzhuang's pupils shone with ruthless light. She won't miss this chance to kill Bailey Yuyan. Bailey Yuyan never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to deal with the storm wolf so fast. Thinking of the sword soaked in blood, she grew anxious and couldn't help but stumble backward. Bailey Hongzhuang, what do you think you're doing? Bailey Yuyan asked, flustered. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled demonically. She raised her black eyebrows, her voice bewitchingly low. You say, what do you think I'm doing? Bailey Yuyan looked at the unfamiliar Bailey Hongzhuang, unconcealed killing intent in her black pupils. She was very clear. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to kill her. Do you know the consequences of killing me? Bailey Yuyan's face was pale. She knew that her strength wasn't an opponent for Bailey Hongzhuang at all. Haha. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Her face suddenly changed, her eyes turning cold like a glacier. Who do you think you are? If I want to kill someone, do I need to worry about the consequences? Bailey Yuyan was startled, and couldn't help but swallow. Bailey Hongzhuang's words really left her speechless. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang walk step by step, Bailey Yuyan felt like she was stepping on her own heart. Her hand that held the sword couldn't help but tremble. Father won't let you off. Bailey Yuyan continued to persuade Bailey Hongzhuang. If she could leave the hunting grounds safely, she could always take revenge later. It's not him that won't let me off, it's me that won't let him off. Accept death. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were impatient. At first, she thought that Bailey Yuyan would still pick up her weapon and attack, but she didn't think she actually didn't even have the courage to fight. Crown Prince. Save. Traceless kill. Her sword flickered. Bailey Yuyan's body fell to the floor. Before her words "save me" could finish, Bailey Yuyan had already died under Bailey Hongzhuang's sword. Before Bailey Yuyan had poisoned her blind, and even let her live a life worse than death. Later, she destroyed Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance in dreams. Then she no longer cared about her. And now, Bailey Yuyan was just reaping what she had sown. Being kind to an enemy was being cruel to oneself. She won't give Bailey Yuyan another chance to try and kill her. Chapter 155. Bailey Yuyan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang incredulously. Even now, she still couldn't believe that she died under the hands of the same trash she had always disdained. Xin Yuanhuan watched, speechless for a very long time. Everything happened too quickly. Before he could react, Bailey Yuyan was already dead. Taking Bailey Yuyan's pouch, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xin Yuanhuan indifferently before turning to the hunting field's exit. She already got the storm wolf's demonic core. Now as long as she can leave the hunting grounds alive, first place was hers. As for killing Bailey Yuyan, as long as Xin Yuanhuan didn't say anything, she didn't care. Watching her white robe fade into the forest, Xin Yuanhuan's heart was in chaos. filled with complicated feelings. From the beginning they were always blind. Bailey Hongzhuang was never trash. Only Dibei-chun truly had eyes, they were just fools. As Bailey Hongzhuang walked to leave the hunting field, everybody turned to stare at her. The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang had been in that fight against the Hellwolves had shocked many people. Now they didn't only know that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't trash, but that she also was extremely talented in fighting. Originally they had thought the champion was sure to be Xin Yuan Huan or Bailey Yuyan, but now they knew Bailey Hongzhuang was also very likely to get first. Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi were just looking for the storm wolf. Even though they knew it was impossible for them to kill it with their own strength, being unable to hold back their curiosity, they wanted to witness the cultivator who would fight against the storm wolf. While they were searching, Xiao Zifan's gaze was suddenly locked on a white figure. In this emerald green forest, that moving white figure was especially eye-catching. Bailey Hongzhuang? Xiao Zifan asked, surprised. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard Xiao Zifan's call, her quiet and exquisite face lit up with an elegant smile. We meet again. Xiao Zifan led an unwilling Zhao Yunqi in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Right now we are searching for the storm wolf. Are you preparing to go back? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. There's no need to look anymore. The storm wolf is already dead. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi were both startled. The storm wolf is already dead? Who killed it? The storm wolf wasn't easy to handle. Almost all the cultivators wanted to go and watch the show, but they never thought that it'd end before they even got there. The surrounding cultivators also turned to look at Xiao Zifan and Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was heading back, she should know something they didn't. I killed it, Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. You killed the storm wolf? Zhao Yunqian asked, raising his voice. The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang was able to kill the Hell Wolf King truly exceeded her expectations, but she really didn't expect for Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to kill the storm wolf too. This time the prize for first place was very rich and definitely should have belonged to Xin Yuan Huan. But now how could Bailey Hongzhuang snatch it away? Zhao Yunqi's voice very loud, and all the surrounding cultivators heard those news. Suddenly, the gazes directed at Bailey Hongzhuang grew fiery. Zhao Yunqi wasn't able to control her voice and accidentally shouted it. The news spread as some cultivators stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, wanting to steal away the demonic core. After all, the emperor said whoever could bring the demonic core back, not whoever could kill it. Chapter 156. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned a little, her view of Zhao Yunqi becoming a little bit worse. Even though she had faith in her own strength, Zhao Yunqi's actions were tantamount to throwing her to the wolves. Xiao Zifan's face turned ugly, immediately speaking. Yunqi didn't do it on purpose, I'll apologize for her. He and Zhao Yunqi knew each other for many years. He knew she was only flustered and had lost her temper in a moment of impulse. But her heart wasn't bad and absolutely didn't intend to cause trouble for Bailey Hongzhuang. I didn't do it on purpose. Zhao Yunqi's tongue got twisted as she talked. Although she did not want to apologize to Bailey Hongzhuang, this time it was truly her mistake. The displeasure in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes slightly faded away. From Zhao Yunqi's attitude, she knew this apology came from her heart. I'll leave first, Bailey Hongzhuang said unhurried. Although there were quite a few cultivators that heard it, there weren't too many. These people wouldn't dare to do anything. Xiao Zifan nodded continuously. We'll go back with you. The news would spread quickly, so it was only inevitable for some cultivators to harbor bad intentions. After all, the temptation of a spirit beast was just too tempting. Zhao Yunqi didn't speak. Everything was because of her, so it was only right for her to do this. Hearing so, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't refuse. Let's go. Xiao Zifan was her friend. If she declined, Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi would definitely think that she took offense, creating tension in their relationship. Sure enough, seeing Bailey Hongzhuang agree, a happy smile spread on Xiao Zifan's face. Fervent gazes stared after the three figures fading away into the forest. If they could defeat Bailey Hongzhuang, first place was theirs. Not only would they get the spirit beast they yearned for in their dreams, they would also bring honor to their ancestors, their reputation spreading far and wide. Feeling the eyes of the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang's cold eyes swept through the crowd of people, indifferent and ruthless. The cultivator's originally fiery hearts seemed to have been doused by a bucket of cold water. How could they forget how strong Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was to be capable of killing both the Hell Wolf's king and the Storm Wolf? That one night, a girl facing the crowd in a crimson blood-dyed dress gave everybody a scene they could never forget. Although a spirit beast was good, they also needed to enjoy life. They still remember Bailey Hongzhuang's cruel, ruthless gaze after she killed the Hell Wolves. If they attacked Bailey Hongzhuang, they were afraid Bailey Hongzhuang would ruthlessly strike them dead. Their pounding hearts stopped. The crowd turned their eyes and walked away. And the crowd turned and continued to walk forward. Although they heard Zhao Yunqi's words, they all wanted to see the Storm Wolf's corpse with their own eyes. Watching the crowd leave, Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze before continuing to walk calmly towards the hunting grounds entrance. Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi looked at each other. After the battle with the Hell Wolves, Bailey Hongzhuang's fame had already spread far and wide. They only needed to look at their motionless hands to know the allure first place held. That strength was something only a few people possessed. I didn't think that the Storm Wolf would actually be killed by Bailey Hongzhuang. I was sure that the Crown Prince would get first. Why don't you just steal it? As long as we beat Bailey Hongzhuang, first place is ours. What a joke. Haven't you seen Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes? If we attack, I'm afraid our end will be even worse than the wolves. Everybody sighed with regret. When everyone heard the emperor declare the rules, they had already secretly decided to attack whoever killed the Storm Wolf for the demonic core. But Xianyuan Huan, the most likely person, was the one everyone had prepared for. Chapter 157. They didn't expect that the person who killed the Storm Wolf wasn't Xianyuan Huan, the person they had prepared for. The former waste has now terrorized every single one of them. On the high platform above the hunting grounds, the emperor and his chancellors ate pastries and drank tea, their eyes falling from time to time on the hunting field's exit. Today was the hunting competition's final day, the day where the results will be announced. The Empress Jiang Jining's eyes were filled with eagerness. She was sure Xianyuan Huan's strength was definitely enough to get first place. She truly couldn't wait to see Xianyuan Huan. Su Wanjing was also excited. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's strength surpassed her expectations, she was certain Bailey Yuyan's strength was enough to get second place. Although everybody exchanged greetings warmly, their focus had long been shifted. Suddenly, a noise sounded at the hunting field's exit, attracting everybody's attention. Never mind what achievements they got inside the hunting grounds, even getting out alive was pretty good. But they all hoped that whoever came out first got first place. 3 figures appeared under the crowd's intense stares. When everybody saw the woman in front, their faces all turned a little strange. The first one to come out was actually Bailey Hongzhuang. Although this result was beyond everybody's expectations, their hearts also couldn't help but be a little curious. The imperial bodyguard said Bailey Hongzhuang killed the Hell Wolf King. After they heard the report, they still needed a very long time to accept it. Their hearts were just too shocked. Why did Chen Wangfei come out first? Did she already kill the Storm Wolf? What a joke. Even if Chen Wangfei isn't trash anymore, she still isn't His Highness S, the Crown Prince or Bailey Yuyan's opponent. In my opinion, I think His Highness, the Crown Prince already killed the Storm Wolf, so Chen Wangfei no longer saw any point in staying, leaving the hunting field first. Hearing his words, everybody nodded one after another. That was probably what had actually happened. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't pay any attention to everyone's conjectures. Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi bowed and greeted the emperor before going to sit in the resting area. The results of the hunting competition are only announced after everybody comes out of the hunting ground, so for now, they could have a break. Zhao Yunqi sat in a soft, comfortable chair. Feeling her body relaxing, she thought this truly was the best. For the past 3 days, her body and mind were always tense. She didn't even dare to sleep well, afraid of the demonic beasts attacking at night. If they didn't react on time, they would lose their lives. Tasting the bitterness and hardship, she knew that kind of life was too unbearable for her. She never wanted to do it again. Xiao Zifan's heart was a bit tenacious. Although the life in the mountain ranges was definitely tough, he knew one couldn't achieve glory and wealth without having been through trials and tribulations. This was to reach the top. In these 3 days, he made even more progress than he did when he was cultivating at home for 3 months, and even managed to successfully break through to the late stage of Mysterious Earth. Although he didn't get into the top 3 this time, these gains were already a great surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down calmly. There wasn't a single trace of tiredness on her beautiful face, every move rippling with elegance. It almost looked as if she had never gone into the hunting fields and was sitting there all along. Bailey Haoxuan stared at Bailey Honghaung. He had thought Bailey Hongzhuang would die in the hunting fields but didn't expect she would actually have such great luck. Chapter 158, It's a Bluff. Bailey Haoxuan snorted coldly. Just wait until sister comes back. I want to see how she'll act then. A ruthless light flickered past Su Wanjing's eyes. Even if this trash was lucky enough to come out alive this time, it won't be long until she dies. Bailey Hongzhuang's fight with the Hellwolves caused everyone to reevaluate her. She absolutely mustn't let Bailey Hongzhuang steal away Bailey Yuyan's limelight. As soon as the hunting feast was over, she will look for a hitman. No matter what, she needed this trash dead. Very quickly, cultivators began to leave the hunting grounds. Seeing their children come out safely, the various officials couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Regardless of their child's achievements, so long as they were safe and sound, they would be happy. But while almost all the cultivators were out of the hunting grounds, the crowd's 2 most anticipated cultivators, Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Yuyan, still didn't leave the hunting grounds for a long time. Doubt appeared in everybody's eyes. Why is His Highness, the Crown Prince, still not out yet? Could he still be fighting with the Storm Wolf? Maybe the Storm Wolf is just very hard to deal with. Then taking a lot of time would only be natural. Hearing the court chancellors talk on the stage, all the competition cultivators stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Yin were killing the Storm Wolf? Haha, the real Storm Wolf was already killed by Bailey Hongzhuang. Time slowly passed by. Finally, everybody saw a bright yellow figure come out of the hunting field. Huaner. Seeing the familiar robe, Jiang Jining couldn't help but get up and smile. He finally came out. But when Jiang Jining saw Xianyuan Huan's body, her face couldn't help but turn pale. Because his bright yellow robes were dyed red with blood, she could tell from Xianyuan Huan's face that his injury was serious. Jiang Jining immediately went over, at once reaching Xianyuan Huan. Xianyuan Huan was her only son. Now seeing Xianyuan Huan suffer such a serious injury, her heart was stabbed with pain. Huaner, what happened to you? Jiang Jining's face was filled with concern, about to pull Xianyuan Huan's hand. But when she pulled, Jiang Jining's face grew even paler. Your hand. Xianyuan Huan's face was bitter. He never thought he'd come out of the hunting competition with such an appearance. Xianyuan Yutian's face also changed. Although he knew that there would always be casualties at the hunting feast, and that this year was even more difficult than the previous ones, he had believed that Xianyuan Huan's strength was enough. But now Xianyuan Huan wasn't just hurt, but seriously injured. All the court chancellors were shocked. Xianyuan Huan was at the initial stage of Mysterious Ian, but still got seriously injured. From this, you could clearly see just how strong the Storm Wolf truly was. The competing cultivators all couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Xianyuan Huan's hand was already completely mutilated. Even as the Crown Prince, it still wasn't easy for him to fully heal his injury. He had already prepared for the imperial physicians to assist Xianyuan Huan and bind his wound before quickly treating the other cultivators' injuries as well. Seeing Xianyuan Huan so seriously hurt, Bailey Zhentao grew somewhat heavy. Even now, they still haven't seen Bailey Yuyan come out. A loud gong sounded. The hunting competition was over. The hunting field's entrance closed. It would only open on the day of the next hunting competition. Chapter 159. Watching the exit, Bailey Zhentao's face was gloomy as he stood up. Emperor, my daughter still hasn't come out. Hearing that, everybody looked at Bailey Zhentao curiously. Bailey Yuyan's strength was ranked amongst the best in the group of competing cultivators, so the fact that she still hasn't come out was truly a bit strange. A trace of astonishment flickered past Xianyuan Yuqian's eyes, his voice sinking. There's nobody left in the hunting field. When these words came out, everybody fell in shock. For a moment, Bailey Zhentao didn't react to Xianyuan Yuqian's words. After he was clear, his shock took over his dignified face. Impossible. Bailey Yuyan still hasn't come out of the hunting grounds, but they said that there wasn't anybody left in the field. Doesn't that mean that Bailey Yuyan's dead? When he first heard it, Bailey Zhentao thought it was absolutely preposterous. With Bailey Yuyan's strength, it was simply impossible for her to have died there. Li Chongqian was also somewhat surprised, but his surprise was actually a pleasant one. Now that Bailey Yuyan died, the general's household would definitely be much weaker. Only Bailey Haoxuan was left, and right now he was just a cripple. Yuyan definitely couldn't have died. Su Wanjing immediately yelled, her face completely firm. Almost nobody believed it. They all knew Bailey Yuyan's strength. Unless something like Bailey Hongzhuang's situation happened and she got surrounded by hellwolves, it shouldn't have been possible for her to die. But at this moment, Xin Yuanhuan slowly opened his mouth. Bailey Yuyan really did die. Xin Yuanhuan's words were like tossing a stone into a calm lake. As soon as he spoke, everybody stared intensely at him. Since Xin Yuanhuan had personally confirmed it, then it probably was true. Bailey Yuyan had died. This news swept over everybody's hearts. Even the competing cultivators' faces were filled with shock. Did you see it with your own eyes? Bailey Haoxuan asked unresigned. Xin Yuanhuan slowly nodded yes. When Xin Yuanhuan's voice fell, Su Wanjing's face instantly turned deathly pale, falling limply to the ground. No. It's impossible. Su Wanjing trembled, her face full of disbelief. She was waiting for Bailey Yuyan to return with glory. How could she have died in the hunting field? Bailey Haoxuan looked at Xin Yuanhuan in a daze. He was very clear about Xin Yuanhuan's identity. There was no reason why he would lie because there simply wasn't a need to. But his sister's strength was so strong, how could she have died? Bailey Zhentao's face was gloomy. Although inside his heart was filled with shock, he didn't lose his manners. Excuse me, Your Highness, Crown Prince, may I ask how Yuyan died? Bailey Zhentao asked. Master, will Xin Yuanhuan say what really happened? Little White asked worried. Bailey Hongzhuang was indifferent. Even if he tells the truth, dead men tell no tales. What evidence does he have? Since she dared to kill Bailey Yuyan in front of Xin Yuanhuan, she had already long thought of the consequences. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang so confident, Little White smiled. Oh, that's true. Plus, he won't tell the truth. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled softly. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Little Black and Little White were flabbergasted. They couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang said that. But Xin Yuanhuan's answer soon made Little Black and Little White want to prostrate themselves in front of her in admiration. Bailey Yuyan was killed by the storm wolf. Xin Yuanhuan said slowly, to say the truth, my injury was also due to the storm wolf. Everybody looked at Xin Yuanhuan's mutilated hand and swallowed. The storm wolf was truly too fierce. Xin Yuanhuan, even with his strength, got so seriously injured. Bailey Yuyan was still somewhat weaker than Xin Yuanhuan, so being killed by the storm wolf really wasn't impossible. Thinking up to there, Bailey Zhentao's face seemed to have suddenly aged 10 years. His high-spirited aura of a general suddenly diminishing. The past 6 months were like a dream for him. He didn't dare to believe that the general's household power has been reduced to this pitiful state in such a short amount of time. Now even Bailey Yuyan died. The general's household strength is far weaker now. Currently the general's household only has Bailey Haoxuan. It's good that he didn't participate in the hunting competition, otherwise the general's household would truly cease to exist. That's not only it. Chun Wangfei is a newly rising talent, but the general's household didn't know how to cherish the pearl. Everyone's gaze is turned to stare at Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Haoxuan's bodies. No matter how they looked, Bailey Haoxuan just simply couldn't even be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang. After a brief amount of time to rest, Xianyuan Yuqian spoke. Now we will begin to announce the top 3 competitors in the hunting competition. When Xianyuan Yuqian's voice fell, the atmosphere suddenly changed. The moment suddenly became incredibly tensed. If they could get into the top 3 for the royal family's hunting competition, not only could they receive rich awards, but their names would also be known all over Fengbo country. Xianyuan Yuqian's face slowly revealed a smile. For first place, who has the storm wolf's core? All the Chancellor's eyes fell on Xin Yuanhuan's body. Although his injuries were very serious, no one but him had the strength to win against it. The situation became very strange. On the high platform, the Chancellor stared at Xin Yuanhuan. On the ground, everybody else turned to Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this scene, the Chancellor's faces all changed somewhat. What did this mean? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang had the Storm Wolf's demonic core? Xianyuan Yutian and Zhao Yunqi had doubt on their faces. It seemed this time the hunting competition truly had many variables. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly stood up. Above her slim, fair palm appeared the Storm Wolf's demonic core. The demonic core was azure in the sun, emitting a captivating luster, energy fluctuations faintly permeating in the air. This was the power of a demonic core. All the Storm Wolf's strength was stored in its core. It was incredibly valuable. Xianyuan Yutian and the rest could all recognize the Storm Wolf's core with a glance. Until they saw Bailey Hongzhuang take out the demonic core with their own eyes, didn't believe it. First place was Bailey Hongzhuang's. Bailey Hongzhuang actually got first in the royal hunting competition. Truly too incredible. And even His Highness, the Crown Prince, got seriously injured, but Bailey Hongzhuang came out unscathed. Did that mean she was stronger than His Highness? Everyone's eyes changed. Before, they hadn't personally seen Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, and always had some suspicions about what happened. Now that everything was an ironclad fact, they were completely convinced. The sunlight spilled on a white figure, casting a faint gold shimmer on her body. Her delicate, beautiful face rippled with a clear, faint smile. Not proud, not impatient. Even though she was first place with all its glory, her face was still indifferent. Such a bearing was already something the mass majority of cultivators there were unable to have. The winner of the hunting competition was actually the somebody known in the imperial city as Trash. The general's household family truly had no eyes. Did you see how ugly General Bailey's face was? Now his intestines have probably turned blue from regret. That's true. If Bailey Hongzhuang was still one of the general's household's people, the general's household's future would truly be limitless. I really fail to understand how General Bailey's wise. He can't even handle simple family matters. Even though everybody spoke quietly, Bailey Zhentao could still hear every word. In fact, even if he didn't hear them speak, he already knew their way of thinking. He had expelled a perfectly good talent that could have brought glory to their ancestors. Now everybody saw him as a fool. Thinking a little, Bailey Zhentao felt his face heat up. Today, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance had truly destroyed their face. TL note face in Chinese is used synonymously with pride. Who was known as Trash? A person capable of easily winning the hunting competition was known as Trash? Then what would everyone else competing be known as? Under everybody's eyes, Su Weining was even more ashamed. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's future was boundless. Thinking back, she was truly embarrassed. A Cordonunch took the demonic core from Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and brought it to Xianyuan Yutian. When Xianyuan Huan looked at the core in his hands, his lips raised to expose a pleased smile. This really is the Storm Wolf's core. Chun Wangfei truly wasn't simple. Bailey Hongzhuang performed the courtesy. Your Majesty is too generous. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's elegant appearance as she performed the courtesy, everybody's hearts were moved. This was a true genius. After confirming Bailey Hongzhuang was the winner, the other cultivators took out the demonic cores they had collected in the hunting grounds. Second and third place was determined by the number of demonic cores you held. Xianyuan Huan was fully deserving of second place, and Xiao Zifan was third. At first Xiao Zifan was surprised when he saw the results, but then soon understood. Many of the demonic cores were from when he helped Bailey Hongzhuang face off against the crowd of hell wolves. Demonic beasts weren't very common, so it'd usually take a long time to find one. Only when he was surrounded by a flock was he able to get so many so quickly. He had a lot of cores, but the amount Bailey Hongzhuang held was probably incomparable to anyone else's here. Even Xianyuan Huan wouldn't have enough. After crowning the top three, Xianyuan Yutian gave the awards on the spot. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the demonic beast egg in her hands, a small smile slowly appearing on her face. Her spirit beast was just inside the eggshell. Demonic beast eggs weren't unhatched demonic beasts. but were actually young demonic beasts sealed with a mysterious technique. Usually demonic beasts were unwilling to be spirit beasts, so they would be sealed when they're young and would only come out of the shell after they've formed a contract with somebody. Xianyuan Huan got the bone-cleaning pill and Xiao Zifan received his lotus cloud fungoid. Everybody stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two enviously. From today on, their names would be known all over the country. In the crowd, just as the hunting feast's curtain began to close, two figures slowly made their way to the high platform. Everybody looked at two men curiously. With their experience, they naturally knew the two's identities weren't simple. We pay respects to the emperor. Xianyuan Yutian smiled when he saw the two men. Teacher Lu, Teacher Fu, please get up. Chapter 162. These two are the Azure Water School's recruiting teachers. Xianyuan Huan introduced the two to everyone. Hearing the name, Azure Water School, everyone's faces changed. The young cultivator's enthusiasm grew even more. Gazing excitedly at the landing teacher Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo Azure Water School, situated between Fengbo Country and Clear Flame Country's borders, they were a school specialized for producing talented cultivators. Every young cultivator dreamed of one day entering this place. Becoming a student of Azure Water School was already a great honor in itself. Nowadays, if a person were to say they were from Azure Water School, everybody would turn to look at them with respect and admiration. That place was full of talents and abundant resources. If a cultivator could enter, their cultivating speed would be far faster than anything they could achieve at home. The only thing was, Azure Water School's entry requirements were very strict. Each year, only a few cultivators were able to enter. Every entry day, Azure Water School would send a few teachers to recruit new talents. If the teacher thought you had talent, they would ask you to go to the Azure Water School when the moment comes to participate in the examination. You had one sole chance to participate in the exam and that was it. Only after passing it would your ability be enough to be allowed entry into Azure Water School. Apart from this, there was still another exception. Very rarely, Azure Water School had a kind of invitation letter. If a teacher believed firmly in a cultivator, they would bestow them an invitation letter. When the time came, the cultivator didn't need to take the exam and could directly enter Azure Water School. A student capable of earning such a letter undoubtedly had talent. From a young age, their strength should have always been the strongest among their peers. The youthful faces were all a bit nervous. The recruiting teachers appeared so suddenly. It was quite possible for them to have found a cultivator they liked. Maybe it was them. Bailey Hongzhuang also stared when Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo appeared. According to Xianyuan Yuqian's and the others' earlier reactions, she knew the one little black and little white had sensed back then weren't them. That means the ones who were watching earlier must have been Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo. In that case, the Hell Wolves' attack were also because of them. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo sensed Bailey Hongzhuang's stare, their faces exposing a friendly smile. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped watching them, her face completely indifferent. Regarding the two men who placed her in danger, she had no desire to smile back at them. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo didn't mind. Turning to speak, Emperor, we've found two pretty good seedlings in the hunting competition. Hearing them, Xianyuan Yutian smiled. His gaze couldn't help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Bailey Hongzhuang had the best performance in this year's hunting competition. It was simply incomparable to anyone else's. Earlier he had wanted to take the chance to send Huaner to study at Azure Water School, since he believed that Huaner's strength was definitely enough to shine brightly in the hunting competition. But he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was even stronger. The important seedling Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo found was most likely Bailey Hongzhuang. Everybody suddenly understood. It was no wonder that the rewards were so rich. It because Azure Water School was also attending. The richer the award, the higher the competitor's moral will be. A higher moral meant that they would show a better performance, thereby possibly attracting the Azure Water School's teachers' attention. Chapter 163. I wonder which two cultivators the teachers have chosen? Although he already knew the answer, Xianyuan Yutian still asked. The Crown Prince Xianyuan Huan, that youngster there, and that girl are all quite nice. Lu Huayan smiled. Xiao Zifan was astonished when he saw Lu Huayan's finger point at him. He couldn't believe it. Me? Me? Yes, you. Lu Huayan was certain. Whether it was strength or talent, Xin Yuan Huan was very good. Although his persistence and determination were a little off, once he entered the Azure Water School, it would no longer be a problem. That was because Azure Water School's cultivation was cruel. It was like a greenhouse, where they would only treasure the flowers and throw out the weeds. Xiao Zifan's strength was only average, but he was very bright, which was something they appreciated very much. Other than Xiao Zifan, another woman called Zhang Han was also filled with excitement. She had never thought that she'd be selected. Gazes of admiration and envy stared at Xiao Zifan and Zhang Han. Being able to attract the Azure Water School teacher's attention was truly enviable. I don't know if you three would be interested in partaking in our Azure Water School's exam? Although Fu Hongbo was asking, he wasn't worried. This was a chance that no cultivator would refuse. Just as expected, Xin Yuan Huan and the other two all nodded their heads. This was a huge opportunity for them. So long as they tried hard in the examination, their cultivation would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. But everybody was staring at Bailey Hongzhuang doubtfully. This year, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was clearly the best. So why didn't they mention Bailey Hongzhuang's name? Everyone's face was different. All kinds of conjectures popping into their heads. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang used a scheme to get to first place so the two teachers didn't care about her? Su Wanjing's numb eyes suddenly had a ray of light. She immediately thought Bailey Hongzhuang must have used a shameful method. However, the next moment, the two teachers did something that made everyone stare with wide eyes. They could only see Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo walk slowly to Bailey Hongzhuang. Shockingly, a shining violet invitation letter appeared in their hands. Miss Bailey, are you interested in joining our Azure Water School? Fu Hongbo asked smilingly. Seeing the purple invite, everybody sucked in a cold breath. An invitation letter. It's actually an Azure Water School invitation letter. Bailey Hongzhuang actually got the Azure Water School's invitation letter. The letter was something many cultivators dreamed of, but many more didn't even dare to hope for it. The two teachers' question was as different as black and white. Even Xin Yuan Huan, the crown prince, only got the chance to participate in the exam. But Bailey Hongzhuang was allowed to directly enter Azure Water School. There was no need for an exam. The two tutors already firmly believed in her talent. At this moment everyone was clear. It wasn't that the two teachers didn't care about Bailey Hongzhuang, but that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually the most important part. Too awesome. After everyone hears, who knows how many people will be stunned? Xiao Zifan was briefly surprised, but soon his face was filled with pure joy. Bailey Hongzhuang really isn't simple. To actually be able to get the two teachers' approval, Zhao Yunqi revealed a bitter smile. She wasn't even able to take part in Azure Water School's exam, If Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan taking out the invitation letter was shocking, Bailey Hongzhuang's next words were even more unbelievable. Chapter 164. Not interested. Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo were startled. Before, it had always been others begging them to bestow an invitation. This was the first time they were rejected. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang's words came out, the crowd fell silent. Everyone's mouths had fallen open. This was a rare chance. Bailey Hongzhuang actually refused? You don't want to join Azure Water School? Lu Huayan asked doubtfully why. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. No reason. Do you hate Azure Water School? Fu Hongbo was puzzled. The glory of Azure Water School was something almost no cultivator would refuse. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head a little. I don't care about the school. I just hate you two. She hated the teachers. Everybody's mouths twitched. They truly didn't know what to say. The reason why Bailey Hongzhuang refused the invitation to Azure Sky School was actually because of the two recruitment teachers. What did the two teachers do to provoke you? Hate us? Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's answer had baffled them. Before this, we've never even met. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brow and smiled gently. Are you sure? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan's hearts thumped loudly. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang actually did see them that day? How was it like throwing me into trouble and then sitting back to watch the show? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips were curved, a voice cold with a trace of sarcasm. Now Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan were sure. Bailey Honghong had really found them out that day. Not only that, but she even knew that they were the ones who had set up the Hell Wolves after her. After a brief period of shock, Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan were now aware that Bailey Honghong was even more extraordinary than they had previously thought. If it was another cultivator, there was no chance that they'd be able to figure it out. Even though they provoked the Hell Wolves, they left no clues behind. It should have been impossible for somebody to find them. Yet Bailey Hongzhuang not only found them, but even knew it was all connected. This revelation couldn't help but make them wonder. Was it them watching the show from the sidelines, or Bailey Hongzhuang? Was she really just a 15-year-old young girl? Her meticulous mind was simply monstrous. But they liked it. As Azure Water School's teachers, what kind of genius haven't they seen? They weren't interested in the average geniuses which only followed everyone else. What truly interested them were monsters like Bailey Honghong. Right, they wanted monsters. The reason why geniuses were known as geniuses were because they possessed a monstrous side. Bailey Hongzhuang was only at the Initao stage of Mysterious Ian, but was actually able to discover them all while battling the Hell Wolves. Just how monstrous was her spirit force? Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang was worth even more than they had thought. No matter what, they needed to convince her to enroll in Azure Water School. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Xinyuan Yuqian on the platform above her. Emperor, may I ask if the hunting feast is over? Xinyuan Yuqian nodded yes. Hearing his words, Bailey Hongzhuang performed the courtesy. In that case, I will retire first. She had always led her life alone. Even heaven couldn't interfere, how could she let other people? Although he knew Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan's actions had reasons behind them, she had never wanted to go through the test. It was something they had completely forced upon her. She didn't care about Azure Sky School. Chapter 165. Right after she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to leave the rest area. Everyone was in a daze as they watched her leave. Wasn't this just too rude? Bailey Hongzhuang had directly rejected the two teachers' invitation without another word. Even her words sounded as if she was too lazy to deal with the two. Her identity seemed to change in front of everybody's eyes. Xinyuan Yutian's face was also a bit awkward. The royal hunting competition had already ended, so it wasn't exactly wrong for Bailey Hongzhuang to leave. But thinking reasonably, wasn't that just a terrible time to leave? Teacher Lu, Teacher Fu. Xinyuan Yutian slowly started to talk. With his identity as the country's monarch, he usually didn't need to be worried about other people's displeasure. But Azure Water School's identity was special. Its position was very deep-rooted, and its influence was enormous. Many powerful experts came from the school. Its only goal was to grow the cultivator's strength and never asked anything in return. However, every single cultivator was grateful to Azure Water School as their alma mater. If their alma mater were to meet with a mishap, they wouldn't just stand by and let it die. Some of the students who had turned into famous cultivators assisted Azure Water School and donated resources to them to return the favor. So even though Azure Water School seemed to just be an ordinary school, its identity was actually very complicated. The slightest move would affect everyone else. Even Xinyuan Yutian didn't want to offend them. After all, many of Fengbo country's cultivators were also studying there. What's more, Xinyuan Huan was also preparing to cultivate in Azure Water School. Everybody thought that Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan would get angry after Bailey Hongzhuang's response, but the two's reactions were completely different from their expectations. They could only see them continuing to smile at Xinyuan Yutian. Congratulations, Emperor. It seems like there are many good seedlings in the younger generation. We have some business to do, so we'll take our leave first. Watching the two's reactions, Xinyuan Yutian knew that the two weren't angry at Bailey Hongzhuang, but were actually even more interested in her. He nodded his head. Since you two have something you need to do, I shall not detain you. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo nodded, at once leaving in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. Damn, have I seen wrongly? Even after Bailey Hongzhuang refused to join Azure Water School, they are still rushing to ask her? Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's strength isn't bad, the two teachers shouldn't need to chase so desperately, right? In the end, what happened? I don't understand anything. Everybody looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's response was strange. And the two teachers' reaction was even stranger. Could it be that she was straight up trying to get rid of them instead of doing business? Was it that the more Bailey Hongzhuang refused, the more Azure Water School wanted to invite her? Watching the two teachers hurriedly leave as if they were afraid of convincing Bailey Hongzhuang a second late, everybody was left speechless. There was no natural order of things. They had to stake their lives just to hope for a chance to enter Azure Water School, and still needed the teachers to give a nod of approval. But Bailey Honghang was just simply an arrogant idler, and yet other people come running to her. The gap between them and her was just too big. Although all the chancellors seemed to be calm and collect in their hearts, they were actually extremely shocked. This Bailey Hongzhuang may be able to even go against the heavens, ah. With that, the royal family's hunting competition was over. Although Li Changqian was very unhappy with Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, after seeing Bailey Zhentao's thick-skinned face turn dark, his heart became very delighted. Edited by Alex. Chapter 166. Right after she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to leave the rest area. Everyone was in a daze as they watched her leave. Wasn't this just too rude? Bailey Hongzhuang had directly rejected the two teachers' invitation without another word. Even her words sounded as if she was too lazy to deal with the two. Her identity seemed to change in front of everybody's eyes. Xinyuan Yutian's face was also a bit awkward. The royal hunting competition had already ended, so it wasn't exactly wrong for Bailey Hongzhuang to leave. But thinking reasonably, wasn't that just a terrible time to leave? Teacher Lu, Teacher Fu. Xinyuan Yutian slowly started to talk. With his identity as the country's monarch, he usually didn't need to be worried about other people's displeasure. But Azure Water School's identity was special. Its position was very deep-rooted, and its influence was enormous. Many powerful experts came from the school. Its only goal was to grow the cultivator's strength and never asked anything in return. However, every single cultivator was grateful to Azure Water School as their alma mater. If their alma mater were to meet with a mishap, they wouldn't just stand by and let it die. Some of the students who had turned into famous cultivators assisted Azure Water School and donated resources to them to return the favor. So even though Azure Water School seemed to just be an ordinary school, its identity was actually very complicated. The slightest move would affect everyone else. Even Xinyuan Yutian didn't want to offend them. After all, many of Fengbo country's cultivators were also studying there. What's more, Xinyuan Huan was also preparing to cultivate in Azure Water School. Everybody thought that Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan would get angry after Bailey Hongzhuang's response, but the two's reactions were completely different from their expectations. They could only see them continuing to smile at Xinyuan Yutian. Congratulations, Emperor. It seems like there are many good seedlings in the younger generation. We have some business to do, so we'll take our leave first. Watching the two's reactions, Xinyuan Yutian knew that the two weren't angry at Bailey Hongzhuang, but were actually even more interested in her. He nodded his head. Since you two have something you need to do, I shall not detain you. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo nodded, at once leaving in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. Damn, have I seen wrongly? Even after Bailey Hongzhuang refused to join Azure Water School, they are still rushing to ask her? Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's strength isn't bad, the two teachers shouldn't need to chase so desperately, right? In the end, what happened? I don't understand anything, ah. Everybody looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's response was strange, and the two teachers' reaction was even stranger. Could it be that she was straight up trying to get rid of them instead of doing business? Was it that the more Bailey Hongzhuang refused, the more Azure Water School wanted to invite her? Watching the two teachers hurriedly leave as if they were afraid of convincing Bailey Hongzhuang a second late, everybody was left speechless. There was no natural order of things. They had to stake their lives just to hope for a chance to enter Azure Water School, and still needed the teachers to give a nod of approval. But Bailey Honghang was just simply an arrogant idler, and yet other people come running to her. The gap between them and her was just too big. Although all the chancellors seemed to be calm and collect in their hearts, they were actually extremely shocked. This Bailey Hongzhuang may be able to even go against the heavens, ah. With that, the royal family's hunting competition was over. Although Li Changqian was very unhappy with Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, after seeing Bailey Zhentao's thick-skinned face turn dark, His heart became very delighted. Chapter 167. I don't think she refused the invitation because of Azure Water School, but because of us making the flock of hell wolves attack her. It's true that we didn't handle it very well. Fu Hongbo's face was calm. That girl isn't a petty person, and probably won't bother about that. From what they see of Bailey Honghang's behavior towards Zhao Yunqi, if she was truly a petty-minded person, she wouldn't have let Zhao Yunqi off. Lu Huayan nodded slightly. This was also one of the points he admired about Bailey Hongzhuang. Oh! News about Bailey Hongzhuang receiving first place for the royal family's hunting competition swept through the imperial city like wind. The people who heard this news was completely stunned. This was a true dark horse who wins the competition. Before, some people had thought first place would be Xianyuan Huan, and other people thought that it had belonged to Bailey Yuyan. But nobody had ever thought Bailey Honghang would get first. Although it was already known that the trash had gotten prettier, this time Bailey Honghang had used her own strength to show everybody she wasn't trash. In the royal family's hunting competition, Bailey Hongzhuang completely washed off the title of trash. But before everybody could recover from their shock, another piece of news came, shocking everyone until they couldn't even open their mouths. Azure Water School personally issued an invitation letter, but Bailey Hongzhuang unexpectedly rejected it. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang declined, the two recruiting teachers actually didn't get the least bit angry. Instead, they went and continued to try and persuade Bailey Hongzhuang. What was called domineering? This was called domineering. All the cultivators were racking their brains for a chance to enter Azure Water School, but Bailey Hongzhuang was able to think over whether she wanted to go or not. With this, the gaps completely appeared. At this moment, Bailey Honghang had a headache. All over the city, everybody was talking about Bailey Hongzhuang, the imperial city's #1 beauty, Fengbo country's #1 physician, and Azure Water School's personally invited genius. The three titles condensed into a halo around one person. Her power was stunning. Hearing everyone talk, Li Huayan and Fu Hongbo gained a better understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang. The more they heard, the more they knew Bailey Hongzhuang truly wasn't simple. A 15-year-old girl who was always called trash her whole life, suddenly brilliantly blossomed, but was still able to stay calm and collected. Just this temperament alone was enough to make one feel fearful. Although they didn't know why Bailey Hongzhuang was always silently enduring it for so long. Being capable of enduring 15 years of unwarranted abuse, then suddenly gaining such power and accomplishments, one could only imagine how tough her heart was. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo looked at each other. They had still underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. This Bailey Hongzhuang's future isn't simple. Fu Hongbo's face revealed deep emotion. Now he could finally understand how Bailey Hongzhuang was able to stay so calm and collected, even while being trapped by a flock of hell wolves. Because after living 15 years cursed and spat on, disdained despite being able to cultivate, her heart was unshakable. The strong ought to have their requirements, and she posses them all. Lu Huayan nodded slightly. We found an amazing girl. The two looked at each other, smiling. They were even more intent on recruiting Bailey Hongzhuang. From the steward's words, Bailey Hongzhuang learned a little bit about Azure Water School. Before, she was always holed up in the general's household. She didn't even know the basics of cultivation, never mind Azure Water School. Azure Water School had already stood for more than a millennium. Its reputation was very good, and the majority of the cultivators capable of entering all saw a large growth in their strength. That was also why so many cultivators were all racking their heads over how they could join Azure Water School. Chapter 168. 1,000 years ago, Bailey Honghang would have known all the big and famous schools. Although cultivating in schools weren't like cultivating in an aristocratic family, it could still strongly boost a cultivator's power. After all, only after seeing other geniuses would one recognize their own weaknesses and arouse their fighting spirit. Otherwise, if you just stayed alone, your cultivation would inevitably stagnate. Master, this Azure Water School is a pretty good place to go. From the beginning, Bailey Hongzhuang had planned to learn through experience. Cultivating comfortably inside wasn't very good for her growth. She needed to find more rivals, letting her break through again and again past her limits. Joining Azure Water School, Bailey Hongzhuang could meet many amazing cultivators. The school's resources and practical experiences weren't lacking, and it seemed to be even more suitable than going alone. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly nodded her head. Azure Water School isn't bad, but that's not the reason I don't want to go. The next day, the sun shined as birds sang and fragrant flowers bloomed. Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating in her room when a maid came in with news. Azure Water School's teachers had come. Hearing this information, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows. Without needing to think, she already knew it was the two from yesterday. Chun Palace's foyer. Bailey Hongzhuang had just arrived at the foyer to see Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo contentedly snacking on the refreshments, taking small sips of tea and occasionally saying a few words of praise. These two guys were truly too relaxed. Miss Bailey came. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Lu Huayan's face revealed a smile. After a night of sleep, I wonder if you thought it over? Still the same. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Fu Hongbo placed down the tea and stood up. The smile on his face slowly disappeared, replaced by a deep and serious expression. I know that you don't wish to join Azure Water School because of our test. We were truly wrong about that. The strength you displayed had attracted out attention, and so we only wanted to probe you out a little. So we apologize to you. Fu Hongbo's eyes were earnest and sincere. As an elder, he didn't feel wrong apologizing to a junior. After all, if something like this happened to him, he would also be very unhappy. I hope you don't mind. Lu Huayan's lips rippled with a faint smile. They knew clearly that even though the girl was abused for more than 10 years, her self-esteem absolutely wasn't allowed to be trampled on. In Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, their actions truly weren't the least bit respectful. The two's apologies were far beyond Bailey Hongzhuang's expectations. She had never thought that the two had come in the morning to apologize. As Azure Water School's teachers, they were the object of admiration by many. But now they came to apologize to her. In this case, she was only unhappy that the other side wanted to test her. But she knew that to select the best, it was still quite normal. This was a world that followed the laws of the jungle. The rules were always written by the strong, and the weak could only watch. But watching the two apologize so seriously, a trace of warmth couldn't help but appear in her heart. An elegant smile bloomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's blossom-like lips. I would also like to apologize for my earlier behavior. Since Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo already took a step back, she naturally couldn't continue to keep a grudge. Their manners even made her admire them a little. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan immediately sat back in their original positions and continued to sample the refreshments. Girl, your home's refreshments really aren't bad. Seeing the two's attitudes change so fast and even immediately changing the topic, Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. It looked like it was impossible for these two guys to stay serious. A faint smile slowly emerged in her black eyes. She had already begun to get used to Fu Hongbo's personality. Since you think it's pretty good, I'll get the kitchen to prepare some more for you to take back. Bailey Hongzhuang said, indifferent. Haha. This girl truly knows how to talk. Fu Hongbo laughed brightly. In 1 month, Azure Water School will send an announcement. You mustn't arrive late. Lu Huayan urged. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly. I'll arrive on time. Since it's like this, we have to go now. You must work hard. We'll be waiting for you at Azure Water School. Fu Hongbo smiled. Okay. Right after Bailey Hongzhuang sent off the two teachers, she spotted Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi standing in front of the palace gates. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come out, Xiao Zifan waved. Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. She actually didn't expect for Xiao Zifan to come here himself. The royal hunting competition just finished, so everybody should be recuperating in their homes. You guys are looking for me? Xiao Zifan nodded his head. Today Tianxiang Market is having an auction. I heard that there'll be lots of treasures inside, so Yunqi and I just happened to stop by and wanted to tell you. Are you interested? Auction. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes swam, a bright smile making its way onto her lips. I would also like to watch. For cultivators in Shangxua continent, in addition to shops, there were another way for them to find what they wanted. Auctions. Auctions were all about cultivators. The items' value were often higher than the normal shop's items, but it was also far more expensive. Bailey Hongzhuang was also very interested in the competition. Perhaps she could find some of the stuff she needed there. Right now, the thing she lacked most was a good weapon. Ordinary sword simply wouldn't do. That could be clearly be seen with how the Hell Wolf King had snapped it with a single bite. The auction starts at 3 o'clock. We'll meet directly in Tianxiang Market. Xiao Zifan smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Now it was too early and the auction wouldn't begin for quite a while. First, she should go take a look at the beast egg. After learning about Azure Water School last night, she had actually completely forgotten about the beast egg. Thinking of it now, she too wanted to know what kind of spirit beast it was. Returning inside, Bailey Hongzhuang took out the demonic beast egg. It was only 20 centimeters tall, its whole body completely white. Complicated, abstruse patterns appeared around it. These were the seals binding its strength. Bailey Hongzhuang also knew a bit about spirit beasts, but seeing this demonic beast seal, she couldn't help but frown. After 1,000 years, the seal was very different from what she had remembered. Master, I don't. This seal is ordinary. Ah. Little Black spoke up. Little White nodded. I think that the demonic beast sealed inside is even more unordinary. I can sense its energy fluctuations. Little Black and Little White were also a kind of spirit beast, but they themselves didn't know what beasts they were. Unlike humanity, demonic beasts were hierarchical. If a low-level demonic beast encountered a high-level one, it would instinctively acknowledge allegiance. Although Little Black and Little White didn't know what kind of demonic beasts they were, they clearly weren't weak. Since it could even make Little White say it wasn't simple, it was clear that the demonic beast inside was absolutely extraordinary. Chapter 170. The royal family being able to put an ordinary spirit beast as the prize was already very costly, but they could actually still bear to give a powerful one? Her clear eyes were filled with surprise. Originally, she didn't have much hope with the spirit beast egg. After all, even if Fengbo country somehow managed to get a powerful spirit beast, there was no way that they'd give it to her. But now it looked very different from what she'd expected. I don't think that the royal family knew how special this spirit beast egg was. This egg has a power that blocks the spirit beast's power fluctuations. Only we can sense them. Little White spoke up. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved. So basically, I got a big bargain. Although she still didn't know what kind of beast was inside, at the very least, Bailey Hongzhuang knew it definitely wasn't weak. Different spirit beasts had different strengths. Their potentials were different. If the spirit beast's rank was low, then even if the owner knew how to nurture it properly, its achievements would still be limited. That was because they didn't have very much potential. But if the spirit beast's rank was high, it'd have lots of room to grow, giving far more help to its master. Bailey Hongzhuang no longer hesitated. Directly taking a knife to cut her finger, she allowed a small drop of blood to drip on the spirit beast's shell. With the drop of blood, the patterns on the shell bloomed with golden light, shining in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. It was lucky that it was daytime. If it was night, the brilliant flashes of light would have long attracted other cultivators. The fine drop of blood quickly flowed over the patterns and continued to glide. Wherever it went, the seals dissipated. When the drop of blood finally stopped moving, all the seals had vanished. Blood oozed through the shell, blending into the space between the spirit beast's eyebrows. Cracking sounds came from the eggshell. Bailey Hongzhuang and the two fluff balls curiously peered inside the shell. They were all very curious about the spirit beast inside. The first thing that appeared was a furry white paw. The tiny paw was extremely cute. Then, the eggshell was shattered and similarly furry head appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Master! A childish voice shouted at Bailey Hongzhuang, filled with dependence and curiosity. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched as she looked at the thing that could only be described as a house pet in front of her. This is what you guys called a strong and powerful spirit beast? In front of her, there was only a white, furry body curiously looking around. As far as the eye could see, it was no different from a pet dog. Just a single glance was capable of snatching a woman's heart. But still, this was completely different from Bailey Hongzhuang's imagination. She had thought that a high-ranked spirit beast would have a mighty and domineering appearance, but in front of her was only a small white dog. If everyone heard this, she was afraid that they'd die from laughing. Little Black and Little White's faces were also stunned as they looked at the white creature. This figure. It was also different from their imaginations. Little White finally moved closer in front of the white creature, carefully sizing up the spirit beast's appearance. It didn't know any demonic beast that looked like this. Little Black pointed at its forehead. Master, look. King is written on its forehead. T/N, the Chinese character for king, is Wang, so is written on its forehead, not the actual English letters / Chinese pinyin. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang grabbed the spirit beast and looked at its forehead. Sure enough, a character was printed on there. Seeing the king character and then looking at the little white dog, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but find it very funny. What king? Puppy king? Bailey Hongzhuang was speechless. Pfft. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang call it a puppy king, Little Black and Little White couldn't help but laugh. This was just too funny. Master, maybe it's because this spirit beast is only a newborn, so the appearance was a little off. Maybe it's actually a tiger. Little White said. Bailey Hongzhuang examined the spirit beast, traces of doubt in her eyes. I hope so. It was hard to really understand anything about a demonic beast. The only thing you could think of was how utterly adorable it was. There was a chance that it would become an amazing spirit beast later. After all, both Little Black and Little White believed that its rank wasn't low. Do you guys know what kind of spirit beast this is? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She saw many demonic beasts, but they were practically all adult beasts. She truly didn't know much about baby demonic beasts. Little Black and Little White looked at each other before shaking their heads. We don't know. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the spirit beast and asked, what kind of spirit beast are you? Ordinary spirit beasts weren't able to open their mouths to talk, unless they were strong enough to change into their humanoid forms. However, if the spirit beast and master were very close, they could form a spirit link to communicate with spirit force. That way, they were at least able to have a tacit understanding of each other. The spirit beast shook its head, slowly speaking, don't know. Hearing its answer, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't surprised. It was also very pitiful, being sealed immediately after birth. It didn't even know what kind of demonic beast it was. But that wasn't a problem. As long as it grew up, she would naturally know what it was. Later on, we'll all be one family. Bailey Hongzhuang petted the beast, smiling. Master, give this little guy a name. Little Black said laughingly. Bailey Hongzhuang thought deeply before finally speaking. We'll call you Baishir. T/N Baishir equals white lion. She believed that from the king character on its head, it shouldn't be weak. So, its name shouldn't be any weaker than its rank. After Bailey Hongzhuang chose the name Baishir, she found Little Black and Little White staring at her indignantly. Facing the two fluffballs' eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. Why are you guys looking at me like that? Master, why weren't you this good when you were giving us names? Little Black's eyes were filled with resentment. Such a terrible name was the biggest stain of its life. One look and you know we aren't truly loved. Just how many dogs have such a great name? Little White said angrily. In the primordial chaos ring, they had originally wished for their names to be resounded all over China. But thinking of their current names, they couldn't help but shed bitter tears. Little White, this name just sounded too weak. How could a world-famous demonic beast have such a name? It truly couldn't face it. Hearing Little Black and Little White's grievances, Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. These two guys were too serious. The names were only code names. But she clearly knew that the two fluffballs wouldn't listen to her. That's not it necessarily true. Right now, I'll give you two a super domineering combination name. Bailey Hongzhuang said smilingly. What new name? Little White and Little Black asked, eyes wide. Black and White Fiends. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. How is it? Isn't it very domineering? Little Black and Little White paused, before trying to act cool by rolling their eyes. It's so. But their lips couldn't help but curve and reveal their true thought. That name really was powerful. Chapter 172. Bailey Hongzhuang instructed the servants to prepare food for Baishir. Spirit beasts always needed to eat lots of food, and after being sealed away so long without eating, Baishir was naturally very hungry. Seeing the food, Baishir excitedly rubbed across Bailey Hongzhuang's leg before rushing headforth into the food. But when everyone saw how much food Baishir was eating, their eyes were all filled with astonishment. Oh no, there's another glutton. Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. Little Black and Little White were already able to eat, but she never expected that Baisher could eat even more than those two. Just buying cultivation resources for herself was already like a bottomless pit. Now that she's also raising 3 prodigal songs, she really doesn't have enough money. Thinking of it, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but take out the demonic cores. These demonic cores are also pretty useful. Since there's an auction in the afternoon, it's better to take out a few pills to participate. While Bailey Honghang was thinking about what pills to bring for the auction, Baisher's twinkling eyes had already locked onto the demonic core in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. Master want. Baisher left its food to walk towards Bailey Hongzhuang, its voice like milk. Hearing its words, Bailey Hongzhuang raised the tip of her brow. You want the demonic core? Baisher nodded its head. Want. Bailey Honghang's face was doubtful. Although she didn't know what Baisher wanted to do with the demonic core, since it wants, it could have it. As she placed the demonic core in front of Baisher, the 2 fluff balls stared confusedly. This guy shouldn't be able to absorb it right away, should it? Little White asked questioningly. The demonic core was the same as a demonic beast's cultivational essence. After reaching a certain level of strength, a demonic beast could directly absorb a demonic core to increase their own strength. However, it wasn't easy. A demonic beast's energy was very violent. Only a very powerful demonic beast could easily absorb it. The demonic core Bailey Honghang got this time wasn't weak at all. Although Little Black and Little White could still absorb it, Baisher was still young and its body wasn't strong enough. I don't know, let's just look what happens. Little Black answered. Even if Baisher could absorb it, it can't absorb a lot. Since Baisher took the initiative to ask for it, it shouldn't be a problem. After Baisher saw the core, its eyes lit up with even more excitement. It charged at the core. A crisp sound echoed in the air. The demonic core was cracked. Baisher reached out with its soft, red tongue and licked the liquid out of the core, absorbing everything into its body. Soon after, it also chewed on the shell before swallowing it completely. After it was finished eating, Baisher licked its mouth before continuing to eat the rest of its food. Damn, no way. Little Black was stunned. What is this guy made of? How could it eat a whole demonic core? This shouldn't be right. Little White was completely bewildered. This was something they truly hadn't expected to see. Her ink-black eyes were like jade as they twinkled with light. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at its furry body, the corners of her mouth bursting forth with a bright and beautiful smile. Just watching Baisher's actions, she already knew that the little guy wasn't simple. The demonic core Baisher ate just now was one of the hell wolves. If a demonic beast's innate strength wasn't strong enough, they wouldn't be able to absorb the energy. How big was Baisher's potential? It was capable of eating the entire demonic core safely, which proved that its innate power was very strong. She believed that this time she had truly picked up a treasure. Baisher wasn't an ordinary spirit beast at all. Chapter 173. Thinking up to here, Bailey Hongzhuang grew a bit happy. By just a little bit, it seemed that supporting this prodigal son was worth it. Time passed by in an instant and it was finally time for the auction. Bailey Hongzhuang packed her things and left for Tianxiang Trading Commerce. The passerbys' faces all turned excited when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear. Right now, the most famous person in all of Fengbo country was Chen Wangfei. Before, the 3 most popular geniuses were Shen Yuanhuan, Bailey Yuyan, and Li Yuyue, so everybody thought that whether if it was Bailey Yuyan or Li Yuyue, they'd all be a good match for Shen Yuanhuan. But the trash they had always disdained turned out to be the most shocking genius of them all. She proved to everybody with facts that this was true talent. Bailey Hongzhuang was the idol of many young cultivators. Bailey Hongzhuang had suffered from all kinds of humiliation, but now finally her bitterness had finished and sweetness begins. Since Bailey Hongzhuang could do it, how couldn't they? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Zifen immediately smiled and walked towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, you came. Bailey Honghang nodded her head. You guys came here first. We had only just arrived. Xiao Zifen smiled brightly. Next month, I'll be taking Azure Water School's assessment, so my father allowed me to go to the auction to see if there's anything that suits me. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly looked around, finding that many of the people here were rather young. The items that appeared in an auction was far better than the ones in the store. If they could find something that was suitable for them, that would definitely be best. At the same time, everybody else was also staring at Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, it was impossible not to pay Bailey Hongzhuang any attention. Today, Bailey Hongzhuang was wearing a simple white dress, clearly displaying her temperament. Her delicately flawless face seemed perfect from every angle. Just by standing there, she was already a memorable sight. Look, Bailey Hongzhuang came. I wonder if Bailey Hongzhuang ended up choosing whether to go to Azure Water School or not. Refusing such a good opportunity, her courage really isn't small. If I needed to comment, I'd have to say that Chen Wangya really does have the best taste in the entire imperial city, actually being able to bring home and marry such a good woman. If I had known earlier, I definitely would have long gone to the general's household and asked her hand in marriage. Everybody nodded along to his words. Bailey Hongzhuang's sudden rise was the only proof that the general's household had no eyes, losing the pearl. The royal family was the same, but nobody dared to say it aloud. This time, His Highness, the Crown Prince, had truly suffered a loss. A man smiled. Today, I heard that something happened to Li Yu's face. Hearing those words come out, everyone curiously turned to look at him. What happened? Zhao Yunqi giggled as she turned to face Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Zifen. I heard that Li Yu's face somehow got covered in freckles. Now, she could probably change her name to be called Li Matzi, haha. Li Matzi. Li is the surname, Matzi means pockmark. Xiao Zifen was startled. That can't be? How could her face suddenly have freckles on it with no cause or reason? Before, she was always running rampant, acting arrogantly like a peacock. Now she doesn't even dare to leave her room and reveal her face. It serves her right. I've always hated her attitude. Now I doubt that the crown prince will marry a woman covered in pockmarks. Zhao Yunqi laughed, pleased. She truly hated Li Yu's high and mighty attitude, swaggering around the city. Bailey Hongzhuang had a faint smile on her face and didn't speak. This is already His Highness's second engagement. If this one is cancelled as well, then… Xiao Zifen looked distracted. If this got out to the public, the crown prince would be reduced to a joke. If the engagement was cancelled again, and they needed to find another woman to become the crown princess, then His Highness's marriages would be viewed as a funny tale for all of Fengbo country to hear. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang, secretly sighing with regret. His Highness truly had no eyes. Not long after, Xinyuan Huan arrived at Tianxiang Trading Commerce. But when he entered the hall, Xinyuan Huan felt as if everyone was looking at him strangely. His normally proud and arrogant face was currently a little helpless. First, he wasn't able to get first in the hunting competition. Now there was a problem with his fiancée. Before he came, he had overheard his parents discussing whether or not to once again cancel the engagement, making him feel very powerless. He really had no idea why he had such bad luck. Nothing was going in his favor. The originally loud crowd suddenly became quiet. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the auction hall. The bright lounge was enough to house hundreds of people with room to spare, arranged to display a quiet yet refined elegance. A single look could tell that the decor, although valuable, wasn't the least bit overwhelming. That was where the auction would be held. Wait a bit for me, I'm going to the treasure room. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly spoke. Xiao Zifen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang surprised. You're going to sell something? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and nodded, right? Although you can bring items to sell in the auction before it starts, selling it now, it would only be able to make the next auction. You can't catch the current one. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to look around. Bailey Hongzhuang still smiled. If they didn't accept the treasure, it'd be because it didn't have enough value. If it was worth enough, even if it was too late, they would still devise some way to let you sell it in the auction. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang enter the treasure room anyways, Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunqi glanced at each other before shrugging. Bailey Hongzhuang entered the treasure room and saw an elderly 60-something old man, his hand propping his chin as he slept. His head moved from time to time but never fell onto the desk. Senior, Bailey Hongzhuang called out. But the senior was clearly still sound asleep. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice wasn't enough to wake him. Senior. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice, calling again. Thump. The old man was awoken by the noise, his chin knocking heavily on the table. Aya! The old man rubbed his chin, panting with rage as he spoke. Who interrupted this old man's sleep? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Senior, I came to sell something. Chapter 175. A trace of shock flickered by the old man's eyes when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang. He rubbed his chin and sneered. Such a pretty little girl. But even for a pretty little girl like you, disturbing an old man's sleep isn't appropriate. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow, her eyes crafty. From what she made out, the old man was very unhappy. Senior, you were sleeping when you should have been working. Isn't that even more inappropriate? The old man's face changed. Cough, cough. This old man only closed his eyes. Why said I was sleeping? Didn't you just say I disturbed your sleep? The old man looked around before directly ignoring Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Little girl, what are you selling? I can examine it, but I'm afraid it's too late for it to make it into this auction. Hearing his words, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a white porcelain bottle from her space pouch. The old man looked at the white porcelain bottle, a trace of interest in his eyes. Usually porcelain bottles held pills. Taking the bottle, the old man opened it, a strong medicinal smell permeating through the air. This is a bone-cleansing pill? The old man's face had a trace of astonishment. The bone-cleansing pill was a second-grade pill. It has the ability to cleanse the bone marrow. Everyone's bodies always had some impurities. The bone-cleansing pill would flush out all the impurities and as a result, make it easier to sense spirit power and speed cultivation. Although the bone-cleansing pill's rank wasn't very high, only a single pill master in all of Fengbo country was able to refine it. So usually, a bone-cleansing pill was very rarely seen. Who knew how many cultivators were mad with envy when they heard that the second-place prize was a bone-cleansing pill? But how could this little girl have just taken out 3 bone-cleansing pills? He almost didn't even need to think. Just by bringing it to the auction, it had definitely become the finale, the star of the show. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Senior has good eyes. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, the old man's opinion of Bailey Hongzhuang changed a little. Pill masters were a special existence in Shangxian continent. The fact that she was able to bring out pills was proof that there was a pill master behind her. Since she was even able to bring out bone-cleansing pills, it meant that the pill master was a strong one. With this point, Bailey Hongzhuang's position in the old man's heart suddenly rose dramatically. Such a person must be treated well. Little girl, what should I call you? The old man asked. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. My humble self is named Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing the name Bailey Hongzhuang, the old man's face paused. So this beautiful little girl was actually the famous Bailey Hongzhuang. So it was actually Chen Wangfei. He smiled. This old man is Su Hongyuan. You may call me Old Su. Old Su. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands in greeting. Will my pills make today's auction? Su Hongyuan nodded. Of course it will. The 3 bone-cleansing pills are enough to become this auction's finale. Chen Wangfei can rest assured. It'll definitely be able to fetch a high price. This old man is the manager. The auction house won't take a single cent from this. Her limpid bright eyes filled with astonishment. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately waved. That isn't right. What's ought to be given should be given. Su Hongyuan shook his head, smiling. Just putting the 3 bone-cleansing pills in the auction is already enough to attract a large flock of people. At this point, it's already worth more than the fee. No matter what, I won't accept any commission. Chapter 176. Seeing Su Hongyuan so determined, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer refused. Then I'll thank Old Su. She knew that the most important thing about an auction was the quality of its goods. Even though Tianxiang was the biggest auction house in the imperial city, it still has to compete with other auction houses. Auction houses compete by comparing the quality of the treasures. The guests would then choose to go to whichever one had the more valuable treasures. The 3 bone-cleansing pills were enough to let Tianxiang win the auction, and also allowed Old Su to form a good relationship with her. If Chen Wangfei has similar treasures, we hope that you'll choose to sell them with Tianxiang auction, Old Su said smilingly. Certainly. Leaving the treasure examination room, Bailey Hongzhuang thought about Su Hongyuan's identity. The commission fee for the 3 bone-cleansing pills wasn't small at all. An ordinary worker shouldn't have been able to do that. It seems that Su Hongyuan's position in Tianxiang wasn't small at all. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked back to Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang return, Zhao Yunqi asked, "How was it? You couldn't catch the auction?" These were the auction's rules. After all, the auction house always sends a brochure of all its items 2 days before the auction to the rich and powerful. How could it be so easy to more items in the auction? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "I was lucky and made it just in time." Hearing her words, Zhao Yunqi and Xiao Zifan were shocked, staring at Bailey Hongzhuang in blank astonishment. They wondered if they misheard her. "It looks like you brought out something valuable." Xiao Zifan slowly started to understand what happened. Zhao Yunqi suddenly understood. So there was actually such a possibility. This time she truly hadn't thought deeply enough. As the three talked, a premature voice interrupted their conversation. "Are you Bailey Hongzhuang?" Her sharp voice echoed with rudeness and disdain, as if she didn't see anyone as her opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow. Did she know anyone with such an arrogant voice? Cocking her head, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the woman behind her. The woman seemed to be around 17. Her face was peerlessly beautiful, but the slight tilt of her chin revealed her arrogant nature. She was dressed in an ardent crimson dress, her body emitting a remote and aloof aura. Her style was very distinctive, but looking into her almond eyes filled with contempt, Bailey Hongzhuang already had no interest. "Daijiman!" Zhao Yunqi shouted, astonished. She didn't expect to see her here. Hearing Daijiman's name, Bailey Hongzhuang finally knew who the arrogant young woman in front of her was. Daijiman was the daughter of General Dai. Her appearance was outstanding with unsurpassed talent. Last year she had taken Azure Water School's assessment and successfully joined. Up until now, she had been cultivating inside Azure Water School. Nobody expected to see her at Tianxiang auction today. Fengbo country had a large number of generals, and 2 of them were especially famous. The first one was naturally Bailey Zhantao, and the second was Daijiman's father, Dai Tianxiong General Dai. Only, Bailey Hongzhuang never had any interactions with Daijiman. She had no idea why Daijiman was looking for her. Seeing how Bailey Hongzhuang still hadn't answered, Daijiman frowned and shouted again, "I asked you if you were Bailey Hongzhuang." Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow. "What? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."